Kia ora, g'day, welcome back. Here in this video, I'm going to be talking about what the New Zealand selection or the New Zealand SAS selection and cycle was like for me, from my perspective, based on a question that I'll read out shortly from a kind supporter of the channel. So let me jump into that. This person's got here. Kia ora, Joe. I was wondering if you could do a video talking about what selection and cycle was like for you specifically for both NZSAS and the Australian SAS. I've seen a lot of your content, but I don't think I've ever seen a dedicated video from you where you're talking about what selection was like for you leading up to, during, and once you finished selection. I think it would be a cool to do. I think it would be, I guess you mean a cool video to do, as well as interesting for a number of people, including myself. I know you've got plenty of reactions to do, but I personally would enjoy watching something like this from a first-person perspective. Cheers for the mahi you do, Joe, and for the inspiring way you go about doing things on your channel and on your own terms. Thank you for those kind words. Appreciate that. Can't wait to see where you're at in 10 years' time. Maybe hosting your own show. Smiley face. Yeah, maybe. Who knows where I'm at? I'm looking forward to that reflection when that happens as well. Aroha nui kia koe me tō whānau. So those that may be wondering, aroha nui kia koe. So basically, much love, big love to me, me tō whānau, and your whānau, and my family. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Really kind message to receive. I have received not as detailed a message like this or request like this before, but I have received, not that long ago, I can't remember exactly where, I think it was a comment on a video or maybe on a post that I'd put up in and around. I think one or two people asked a similar thing. It'd be cool if I could do a video from my take in terms of what selection was like for me in NZ and Australia. And I think maybe cycle as well. This one here's got for selection and cycle. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'll do my best to anyway. I probably won't combine these. I'll probably do them separate because I think they warrant and deserve a separate video for them. But what I'll try to do is go through in this video as much as I can what selection was like for me leading up to, during, and once I finished selection and cycle for the New Zealand SAS only for this video. And I'll do a separate one again because I think it deserves it. You know, Australia and my time there, very different experiences, some similarities, but you know, they're two different units at the end of the day, two different countries, great countries. And yeah, I think I'll do a separate video for that. Anyway, it means extra content for my channel and stuff anyway. So for here, NZ, eh? Well, I guess leading up to the NZ SAS selection, for me, I probably need to go back a little bit. And I know I've spoken about this in some interviews that I've had the privilege of, where I've had the privilege of being interviewed by people on their podcasts and things like that. And so I know I've spoken about some of this stuff. So some of it, if not all of it, may be a bit repetitive for people. But yeah, anyway, I can't think of a time where I've sat down on my channel and done a reflection like this. So here it goes. My earliest recollection of wanting to join the Special Air Service was when I was around about 14 years of age. One of my older cousins had a book, a black book, which had 3 letters on it, SAS. And I do remember him having my older cousin that is, having some interest in joining the military. And I think I recall vividly him speaking to me saying, oh, you should join the army. To me, I'm about 3-4 years younger than my older cousin, one of my older cousins. And from that stage, I wasn't really interested in the army at all. It wasn't even on my radar. And even when he mentioned that, it still wasn't on my radar until such time as he showed me that book. So his black book with the 3 letters, he showed me it. We didn't really sit down and start going through it, but he showed me it and then he left it there. And then I think he just buggered off and went and did something else. Anyway, the book was there and I thought, oh, I wasn't really doing much. So I grabbed it, picked it up, had a look at it, and then started turning through the pages. And I just saw, I know I've spoken about this in other videos or interviews, I just saw these really cool images, what I thought were really cool, of soldiers in a variety of different settings, some in what appeared to be the bush or the jungle, some people might call it, and their camouflage clothing with all this cool camouflage paint on their face so that they could blend in, wearing military items, holding weapons. I saw people in the water. In some of the images, I saw like all the black roll kits, which I didn't know was the black roll counterterrorism kit with gas masks on and that sort of thing. Arctic images, I sort of vividly remember all these sort of just different settings and images of what appeared to be these soldiers, I assume SAS soldiers, in the book. And when I started looking through those, I was just mesmerized by the images that I saw. And I thought, far out, that looks cool. Young, naive little 14-year-old boy, no idea what soldiering means or what it's about. No understanding of military history, no understanding of the Anzacs or World War I or World War II, nothing like that. Like, those things didn't enter my mind. Like, it wasn't something that I paid attention to. Right or wrong, it's the truth. That's just where I was at. Anyway, I saw these images and they just really stayed with me after going through that book and not really paying attention or reading the words, just looking at the images and turning page after page, just going through and just really enjoying what I was seeing in the images and how I felt, how it made me feel. And it made me feel like that's what I want to do. That's the type of work I want to do. I want to be out in the bush. I want to be out in the desert. I want to be in the cold. I want to be in the water, doing all these things, jumping out of airplanes. Like, there were just a whole bunch of images. Now, the more I sit here and talk about and think about that book, there were just more and more images coming to mind in terms of vividly what I can recall anyway. And that's, I suppose, part of the leading up journey for me. From there, that meant looking at what I would need to do to get into the New Zealand Army with the application and all that sort of stuff. So went through all that process and fortunate enough to get through. Anyway, basic training done. That was 12 weeks at that time. My basic 295 was basic all arms 295, I think is what it was called. That was 12 weeks long. I think for some reason, it was maybe one of the first basic trainings to go to 12 weeks, because I think prior to, I may be wrong, but I think I'd heard prior to basic training was only something like 8 weeks or 12 weeks, something along those lines. So 12 weeks was from 8 weeks as an extra month, a step up from what it used to be. And I don't know why that was, but I remember hearing conversations in and around that we would be doing a 12-week basic, or the first 12-week basic, or one of the first 12-week basics. Who knows? I could be wrong on that, but anyway. And then finished that and then went on to core training. So infantry core training, which was done down the South Island in Burnham. First phase, I recall from memory, we were at a place called West Mountain. And core training from memory was about 14 weeks, so an extra couple of weeks than what basic training was. And during my time, for what it's worth, what I recall is that at the end of basic training, there wasn't really like this gap, because it was nearing the end of that year in 1996, I think. I haven't got any of the photos of my basic, not here in front of me anyway, to have a look at and see the date, but I want to say 1996. So nearing the end of that year, I think we pretty much just packed up after march out, spent a little bit of time with family that came. My mum came there, my uncle, I think some of my cousins came as well. And then that was it. Didn't get much time. And then we had to grab our gear. And then we were on I can't even remember how we got down to the South Island. I don't know if it was a flight. It probably put us on a bus and then on the ferry and then on another bus. That's what I would say happened anyway. And so ended up down basically in Christchurch and out at this sort of remote areas, how I remember it, this remote area called West Mountain, these old sort of concrete style barracks, but some people might look at them and think they were an old style prison. In this little compound, had like a mess area, the ablution block or the toilets and all that sort of stuff, and showers, like a lecture room, what was known as the naffy. I think that might be a UK term, which is basically when it was open, you had an opportunity, if you had some money, buy some chocolate bars or some treats or whatever. So there was that, and then a couple of barrack blocks, or maybe there was 3 or 4 sort of concrete buildings, which housed up to, I want to say, 12 to 14 of us in each barrack block. And and core training. The reason why I talk about that is like, I thought core training was awesome. I enjoyed it. I thought basic was good. I enjoyed that, although I preferred more of when we went outfield on basic training. And for me, a lot of basic training seemed like a lot of camp stuff. Being in camp, a lot of drill. And I was like, meh. I wasn't really into that. Like, that wasn't what I envisaged soldiering to be for me. So anyway, got through that, got to core training, finished that, and then we went to battalion. So I got posted to 1 RNZIR, 1st Battalion Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment. There is a green 1. I don't know if it, let me get up there. Green 1 up in that top corner there for 1 battalion. 1st Battalion, 1 RNZIR. Or 1st Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment. And I feel really privileged to have had the opportunity to go there. I ended up going to Victor Company, 5 Platoon Victor Company. Pretty sure it was 5 Platoon. Not 4 Platoon, not 6 Platoon. 5 Platoon Victor Company. That's where I was. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it anyway. Had some really great people there, some good men there that really set a good example for me. Some men there that also were pretty scary to me. as a 18, then / probably actually 19-year-old by that stage. Getting there to battalion in 97. So yeah, basic must have definitely then been 96. So getting to battalion in 97, I think we got there, I can't remember when I got there. Maybe an early part of 1997 anyway. And it was awesome. We ended up initially in Forsyth Barracks. I think it was not Forsyth Barracks. Oh, maybe it was Forsyth. The 3-story barracks anyway. Anybody that knows Linton, they're sort of like what are they, like transitional holdover barracks type thing. 3 stories. Pretty sure I was on the top story for my platoon and the room that I was in. They were 4-man rooms, which I thought was nice. Better than being in a 12 or 14-man room from basic and core training. And we were there temporarily until such time as Hinton Barracks, which were the Victor Company barracks at the time, they were being renovated. So I never saw them before the renovation started because Victor Company was already in those transitional barracks, I want to call them. Anyway, then got over to Victor Company, some good soldiers and stuff there. Lots of field exercises. It felt like we were going out in the field a lot, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was great. One, because I actually enjoyed the ration packs. I didn't mind the rat packs, the chocolate bars in particular. And then I got exposed to by some of the other senior soldiers where they'd take what was called jack rations. I was like, jack rations? What's that? And that's where they'd go and buy these Sizzler cheese filled sausages. So they'd have their onion, they'd have bacon, they'd get other stuff from the supermarket so that when we'd go out on these field exercises, they could, when it was time to cook up, they'd have these really nice feeds. So I was like, whoa, this is amazing to me. Like going out in the bush and we can have nice food. I thought the food in the ration pack was nice. I still do, to be fair. Like some people might think I'm weird, but I don't mind the food in the ration packs. Anyway, this is sort of setting the scene and leading up to lots of field exercises, good men, some people who I'd consider not so good men, but mostly, by and large, majority good men and just people that I was grateful to be around and learn from. Battalion for me really helped set the foundation, hence why a lot of my videos, and when I get asked by people that I'm either one-to-one or in questions or in lives, or people that I'm lucky enough to work with one-to-one or in small groups, when they ask me about, prep for wanting to do selection or wanting to go and serve in a unit like the Special Air Service Regiment, I always default to infantry just because of the memories that I have, the amount of time that we spent out in the field. It felt like we were, be out in the bush for 2-3 weeks at a time, be back for a week or 2 weeks, and then be back out again for 2 or 3 weeks, and that's pretty much what it felt like for me as a new soldier. And I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed being back in camp when we got to be back in camp. There's some field pay that we had, allowances in there. There was the cheap alcohol at the Baggies bar. Australia, I think they call it the boozer. So that, just some of the different terms. But the Baggies bar here in NZ, in particular in Linton, cheap double bourbon and cokes. Like it was awesome. So that work hard, play hard mentality was, I guess, started to become fairly well ingrained into my mind. But again, I was with good people, good men, from not only Victor Company, but also some of those from my core training cohort that ended up going to Alpha Company and Whiskey Company. Like, we're still sort of connected and would see each other out. Although, once you got to your rifle company within the battalion, you typically started to bond and gel with the people within your platoon and within your company, more so than the guys that you were on core training with. You're still close with them. Like, I was still close with a lot of my friends from core training, even though we were in different rifle companies. But you just didn't, I suppose we just didn't hang out as much. You just, like I said, you became tighter with those within your platoon, your section, your platoon, your company. So anyway, those field exercises really helped, I think, for me, set the scene and really solidify why I joined the Army in the first place. So again, I know I've spoken about it in other videos. Maybe I should have spoken about it here. Maybe I will. So the only reason that I joined the Army by the time I put in my application was because of that black book with those photos in it, and because I wanted to join the Special Air Service. Had no idea what that meant. It just looked cool. That was it to me. It just, those photos, when they say don't judge a book by its cover, that's exactly what I did. I just, or maybe not necessarily the book, I judged that life, that career, by what I saw in that book, and the images that I saw, not from the words that were in that book. So, but I have no regrets. I loved it. So that's what drove me to put in my application to join the Army, because deep down up here, or at the forefront and firmly entrenched in my mind and in my heart, personally, that's all I wanted to do. If I couldn't get into that unit, then I was getting out. Like, it's like, well, there's no point in me staying here in the Army if I can't go and join that unit and be part of the Special Air Service. Like, for me, there was just no point in serving and being a soldier if I couldn't be part of the group where I'll admit I felt like they were the best soldiers going in the military. And as I spent more time in a rifle company and in battalion, I started to hear more and more about how good operators are in the unit. I started to hear more and more about, I guess, the type of work that was expected, that would be demanded, that would be required from somebody wanting to go there and or serve in a unit like that. And that just drew me in even more. I started to hear more stories about how difficult and challenging selection was and is for people that wanted to go there. And that drew me in more. I started to hear more about how many people fail, how many actually apply, and how few actually complete and pass selection to then go on to cycle. And that drew me in even more. So it seemed to me that the worse things sounded and or the harder things sounded in regards to selection, and the low, the seemingly low probability of making it into a unit like that, the more it drew me in. That's the easiest way that I can describe it. And I think, well, not I think, I know with a number of friends of mine that have gone on to complete the New Zealand selection and cycle and be badged and go on and serve. I know a number of them have shared similar thoughts. Like, the more they heard about how hard and how challenging it was and how fewer numbers actually get through, the more it drew them in. And for me, it clicked, and I was like, I'm not the only weird one. I'm not the only blinking lunatic that's thinking that. I'll be honest, I don't think I'm a lunatic, or that those guys are lunatics either. But you know what I mean? It made me like, I was like, I'm not alone in my thoughts in this. And this is awesome. Like, the saying, finding your tribe, finding your people. I felt like I had found them. And when I heard other guys speak, when we'd chat and talk about different things, and occasionally, we'd talk about selection and or cycle or different courses, whatever. Occasionally those types of conversations would come up, and those types of memories, and those when people that I looked at, that I admired, that I respected on my selection and cycle, it just helped confirm for me personally that I was in the right place and that I was doing the right thing. That's my take on it anyway. So I guess that probably maybe helps set the scene in terms of the first part leading up to selection. That's a bit of a download there, which is probably just a video in and of itself. But I'm going to look to try to go through this from the New Zealand side of things, selection cycle, in this one video. Maybe I suppose leading up to, which is probably worth talking about, so sorry, still on the leading up to, is talking about the training. And my training and preparation, my mindset and mentality, again, leading up to selection. So I ended up spending, I'd say, would have been over a year, maybe 18 months, 16, 18 months in the battalion before going on selection. So really good 12-week basic, 14-week core training, and about 16 to 18 months in the infantry battalion, Victor Company, 5 platoon. I was in Victor Company the whole time. So I never went to support company or recce platoon or anything like that, just a rifleman within my section, within 5 platoon, and bounced around between being a scout, between the grenadier, or what they say, Arsene Arnold, bringing up the rear, to being the SIGs guy for a time. Not really. We didn't really have a medic per se in our patrol, in our section, but everybody had received some level of medical training. And then if you were lucky, you got to get onto this course, which is called the Combat Lifesavers course, where you got to cannulate people and put IV lines in and stuff like that. And really, I think that was, I feel like that was really the only additional thing that I did on that course, in addition to other sort of basic first aid, trauma care type stuff. So, but to me, that was cool. I was like, yeah, put a cannula in, put a line into people, get assessed, tested on that. You want to do a good job, etc. But didn't really have, like you're the dedicated medic for the patrol. I was also gunner for a while, so getting on the machine gun and carrying the gun for the section. And yeah, got a good opportunity to bounce around different roles within the section. I was never, and probably if there was one thing that I would look at changing and spending more time on in the lead up to a selection, it would be picking my section commander's brains and 2IC's brains to get a better understanding of navigation. How can I get better at navigation, particularly map to ground? Excuse me, so that I'm not just that guy who shoots a bearing, does his calculations in terms of what he needs to do, and then just marches on that bearing, counting his paces and then staying on the bearing. It just would have helped. So, but I didn't do that. I had, as I've mentioned in other videos, I had a real basic understanding. I knew the calculations that I needed to do. I knew how to do a resection. I knew that if I was going from a magnetic bearing to a grid bearing, my great aunt, that I needed to add the magnetic variation. I understood the true north, magnetic north, grid north, all that sort of stuff. So I had it wasn't like I knew nothing about navigation. I knew basics enough to be able to shoot, plot a bearing, figure out roughly where I am on the map, although I wasn't very great at that. I think my triangle of error was blinking like a grid square of error. or dare I say, sometimes may have been grid squares of error. But yeah, so I don't think I ever did a resection whereby my 3 points or my 3 lines intersected perfectly, and in the center, or where that intersection happened, is where I was. There was always dare I say, a grid square of error or triangle of error. But all of that stuff, again, I think put me in really good stead for understanding the requirements around noise discipline when you're out in the field, movement discipline, your kit and equipment needing to be squared away, my weapon handling, my work ethic, and a whole bunch more. There's all of those things, I think, during that time in battalion, I know during my time in battalion really helped solidify my understanding, my knowledge in terms of soldiering. Still wasn't great, like as a rifleman, 16 to 18 months into a battalion, you're still not, you are a junior, very junior soldier who is still very much learning the ropes. But I think also in the lead up to it, I think that also worked in my favor from the context of I would see and hear and follow the instructions of the senior soldiers. And a lot of them, I'm grateful, many of them became my friends, great men that I looked up to and still look up to, still respect. And if they said to do something this way, it typically made sense. Sometimes they would give a little bit more explanation as to why we're doing certain things a certain way. But for me, I felt like I could look at them, hear what they said, watch and see the demonstration. And for me, it was like a light bulb went on. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I understand that. Yep, cool, got it. And so then I could go and do that thing. Sometimes, I might need a little bit more explanation. Can you, explain why we do it that way, or why do you do things that way when it could be done this way? And then usually those same people would give really good responses, good answers. And again, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That makes sense as well. So those little, as I reflect on them in more detail now as I go through this, so thank you to the bro who sent through this request and the other people as well. Apologies if I haven't acknowledged those other people that have sent through messages requesting similar things. But as I sit here and reflect on those in the lead up to selection, all of that I include as part of my training because it is lots of time out in the field, as I said, being wet, cold, hungry. Those times when you are out in the field and then you have these beautiful days, the sun comes out and it's like, whoa. And then you'd hear guys talking about, yep, just another fine day in our lives that we're never going to get back. and that would make me laugh. I don't know if some of those guys were serious and or if they were just joking, but for me, I understood it. I was like, yeah, it's true. It's another beautiful day. And sometimes you'd have multiple days in a row consecutively strung together that were just beautiful sunny days. And so then you'd start getting hot, or at least hot for NZ anyway. Got all your kits on, you're walking through the bush and now you're sweating, and then the bushes and branches and dirt go down your uniform, etc. That can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's soldiering, and it's what I joined up for. And then you'd hear sometimes when you go non-tac for periods of time at certain phases of different learning aspects before doing the actual culmination of putting everything together part of the training, you'd have those moments where you'd sit around, be sitting in the sun, relaxing, going, this is great. But then you'd get somebody going, just another fine day in our lives that we're never going to get back. And then we'd just start laughing. So those aspects and the training that I said that I include that as part of my preparation, my physical and mental preparation for selection and cycle and to go in and serve in a place like especially a service. So anyway, the field stuff aside, like there's a heck of a lot more to talk about, all of that sort of, there's just so much stuff in there in terms of the tactics being used, the LUPs, the double staggered rosters, etc., the challenge procedures, like figuring out things, going, oh yeah, I didn't really like how and where I had this packed and stacked for that exercise with my kits. It wasn't really that easy to get at, and I needed to use it and have access to it a lot more frequently than what I thought I was going to. And then going back and then modifying, changing things, switching things around, adding more pouches to my pack. So back in the day, from memory, the Alice packs that we were issued was just like this green sack, canvas material sack. It had 3 little top pouches in the center. It had a center pouch in the middle, and then 2 other pouches either side of that larger center pack, and then everything else needed to go inside. And or if you could, you had these old blinking, I guess, Vietnam day clips, metal clips. I don't have any of those these days. That would be not only on your webbing and your pouches, holding it to your web belt, and then your yoke or your straps, but also you could clip extra things on the outside of your pack with those little metal clips, drink bottles, whatever. But they were ugly bloody things. And so they've got much better looking gear these days. But a lot of that gear, I assume, stemmed from maybe, I don't know if it's my generation, and I don't mean me specifically, but I mean those in those 90s era into the early 2000s, maybe before the early 2000s, where there was a lot of modifications happening on our kit and equipment, personally, individually. So I went to one guy in Alpha Company, Sergeant Solomon. Shout out Sergeant Solomon if you are still around. Great man from Alpha Company, highly respected, well known for being able to, what we would call Gucciing up the gear, making the gear more sleek, more streamlined, more comfortable, and just looking neater and sharper. And, you know, when something looks good and feels good, you can perform better too. So that's what I thought anyway. I thought, man, if you're still running around with the web belt and these ugly metal clips and you got one pouch hanging off the side, hanging on for dear life by one metal clip and it's just dangling off the side, like, you'd get people going, look at that sack over there, meaning a sack of SHIT, in other words, because it just didn't look good. Straps and flaps dangling down everywhere on your pack as you're trying to move, like it just looks rubbish. And so having somebody like Sergeant Solomon, who was, man, from what I recall, man, he was busy, like doing a lot of people's gear, like for money, for pay, like a side hustle, I suppose you'd call it. I had no issue, like paying him whatever it cost to get my webbing done. Awesome. Then I needed my pack done. Can you do my pack? I want a pouch here, another pouch here. I'd like these little pouches along this part. I want a flap on top with these extra straps on top so I can carry any, if need be, can carry, you know, whether it's a M72 or 66 rocket, or carry the mortar or 84mm Carl Gustaf rounds, can stick them on top of the pack, because sometimes you get loaded up and have extra gear that you need to carry. So then I had a double flap, so the top flap of the pack, I'd have a double one of those with a zip inside that, so I can have a bladder inside that, I can have a claymore on top of that, I can add other little bits and pieces inside, and it added an extra level of water protection. There's just lots of things that I recall going to Sergeant Solomon, at the time he was a sergeant anyway, and saying, hey, could I have these things done? And he was awesome. I don't know how he did it, because there were plenty of people in battalion, from what I understand, who would go to Sergeant Solomon to get their gear done. And I wasn't even in his company, but he made time and did a lot of my gear for me prior to selection. And a lot of that gear I still have to this day. I don't have my webbing, the web belt that I had, but I've still got my pack that he did for me. So, it's, I guess, a taonga here in NZ terms, or a treasure to me. My pack that I've had since my time in the New Zealand Battalion, in this place here, 1st Battalion, right through selection and cycle, right over to Australia, to 4RER, right through selection and cycle, my time in the regiment, to still having it now. I'm glad I've still got it. It's a bit worn. One of the pouches is missing. One of the big pouches is missing. I haven't got it rigged up with a pack frame on that one, just because it is a bit worn and a few little holes and stuff in it, but I'll get around to maybe one day renovating it or whatever. Maybe that's a video I could do. Renovating the old girl. So anyway, Sergeant Solomon, shout out to you. Thank you for the work. Yeah, but the modifications on kit these days looks to be, in a lot better shape than where it was, at least during my time when I got in as a rookie into the battalion. So I had my gear. Then if I switch from that aspect of lead up and training and prep, and go to the physical training that I was actually doing as part of my decision, I'm going on selection. So I can't remember exactly when, but it would have been roughly about a year. It would have been roughly about a year out before selection was coming in 1998. And that selection I knew was going to be near the end of the year. At the time, they were running 2 selections a year. There was one in the earlier part of the year, may have been, I want to say February, March, around there. And then there was another selection that was held near the end of the year, and I want to say October, November-ish. That's at least how it was that I recall during my time during that period. And anyway, there was one of my friends. I don't think I've mentioned his name, and I won't do it here. But one of the guys that I did basic training and core training with, he ended up doing selection. Man, I want to say he went and did selection in 97, the same year we got to battalion. So we got into battalion earlier in 1997, and he did selection that same year. I think it was at the end of that year. I had no idea that we could go on selection that early. It wasn't something, I wasn't actively at that stage when I got to battalion, because I'm new, guys. Like, you've just got here, lad. Like, pull your head in and just learn a few ropes first, go out on a few exercises, and just do some mahi first, do some work. So it wasn't on my radar to start looking at inquiring about, can I put in my application for selection? I don't think I would have been ready anyway in that first year, personally. But he did. One of my mates did. And I was like, what? I was like, you can do that? Like, we only just been in battalion like 2 minutes. And he's gone on selection. And he passed. So he would have been in battalion literally less than a year. So let's say we got to battalion in March, say roughly March. I don't know if maybe we got there in January, February. I don't know if we got there in January. Maybe Feb or March. Let's go February. February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. 9 months, about 9 months. If it's October, November, 10 months, say. He's been in battalion for. And he's gone on selection, and he passed. Like, completed it, passed, got accepted for cycle the following year in 1998, which was the year that I did selection at the end of that year. And I just thought, that is awesome. I was so happy for him, stoked. I was somewhat envious of him, because I was like, wow, he's only been in battalion 9 months. I didn't know that he had been in the TF, so Territorial Part-Time Force. I don't know. That, to me, it doesn't really, like, that's the part-time army. So TF, Territorial Force, or the reserves, the Australian term equivalent. And then we had RF, or have RF, regular force. And apparently he had been in the TF for a period of time before, so he had some experience and understanding of military stuff. Yeah, okay. To me, it's just awesome. Like, as far as I'm concerned, 12-week basic, 14-week core training, 9 months, say 10 months at a push in battalion. Wouldn't have been 10 months. 9 months in battalion. He's gone on selection. He's passed. And I was like, that was just inspiring to me. I was like, that's awesome. I was like, man, I wish I knew. I don't know if I did know. I don't know if I would have had the courage to put my application in for selection at that time, because I hadn't been specifically training for selection at that time. I hadn't been doing any additional pack work, step-ups, late-night trainings, 2-3 a day training sessions, sometimes 4 a days. I hadn't been doing any of that. And it wasn't until he had come back off selection that I knew that that's where he had been. So, he did such a great job of keeping it quiet, and hence why I share that with other people as well. Like, if people don't need to know, don't tell them. Like, if that person doesn't need to know that you're going on selection, then don't bother telling them. You only need to let those know who need to know in regards to whatever the application process is these days. And so anyway, I didn't really look to pick his brain about it. I wanted to, but why didn't I? I think I just didn't want to be, and he was a friend, and we were in the same company, Invicta company. I guess I just didn't want to be, I don't know, that guy, whatever that guy means. I think I gave it some meaning wrongly at that time, thinking, I don't want to, be going over and bombarding him with all these questions to try to figure out, so what happens on this day? And what about this day? And how did you do this? And what about that? And So I think from that perspective is what went through my head. And when I say I didn't want to be that guy that goes and asks all those questions, so I didn't go and harass him and try to find out every little detail about selection. But shout out to the bro. He was, yeah, like, I just had a lot more respect and admiration for him for being so junior and going on selection and passing. He went on cycle the following year. He did get RTU'd. I don't know which particular phase it was. It may have been, I want to say, the patrol procedures phase. But he got RTU'd with the instruction to get some more time and experience in the battalion, and then go back on the following year's cycle in 1999 and come back and pick up where he left off, basically. And I thought that was cool. So again, NZ unit, Australian unit, these units, my opinion, I think I've always shared this, I do believe they're fair and reasonable, not only in selection, but also in cycle when they're assessing people and looking at, maybe not quite got the goods right now, bruz, but go back for this period of time, 12 months, whatever it is, get squared away, spend some more time here, particularly on these parts. We'll let you come back and pick up from where you left off. You might come back and do 1 or 2 courses again, depending on where you were, just to get back into the rhythm of cycle life, etc. And then obviously you'll be back into that course that you may have got RTU'd on or from in a few weeks' time, whatever it is. So anyway, after that, so I want to say around about a year, 10 months to a year after he's come back from having passed selection, so that would have been near the end of that year in 97, light bulb goes on for me. And I'm like, holy heck, this guy has been putting in the work. And what I did discover and did hear from him is that he did say, like, and I did notice a couple of times in the evening, but I didn't really pay it much attention. He'd be out doing some pack marches in the evening, and I'd see him either leaving with his pack on late at night, and I'd be thinking, that's weird, what's this guy up to? Didn't cross my mind for a second that he was training for selection. I just thought, oh man, he's keen. And then I'd see him a couple of other times. I think I remember seeing him a couple of other times, like when he's just come back, drenched in sweat, pack on. This was before his selection. Again, I just thought, this guy's like, he's taking this seriously. Like he's put in an extra PT. Like I did some extra PT, but I wasn't doing it to what I realized must have been the level that he was doing it. So anyway, after I realized and discovered and heard that he was back from selection, like where's he been? Like, oh, he's been on selection. What? On the SA selection? Yep. Did he pass? Yep. It's like, holy heck. I was like, okay, I need to put in some time, effort, focus, dedication, specifically to training for selection. So that probably is what sent me down a little bit of a rabbit hole to start trying to figure out and learn what was involved in selection. So one of the bros, Pohatu, who has the big smile on his face at the end when he gets told that he's passed and accepted for cycle on the NZ one, he was one of the guys who had been on a selection before. I don't know which selection he had been on, but he failed his first attempt at selection just for being too slow. He always said to me, mentally he felt good, but his legs couldn't carry him fast enough to get to where he needed to be in time. And that's a common thing. Like that happens for a lot of people. So, there are, I would say that there are far more people in the SAS across the board, this is just my take, who have likely failed selection first and passed a second time or a third time, than there are people that have passed the first time and gone straight through. That's what I want to say, just because I can picture a heck of a lot of people in my head right now who failed their first, some failed their first 2 and then passed eventually and then got into the unit and gone on to have great careers and been awesome operators, highly regarded. So, people that might be watching this, if you're still here listening to me yap away, don't be, I would say, if you really want to be there, like if the harder it is, draws you in, if the more challenging it is, draws you in, if the difficulties and the low numbers of people passing something like an SAS selection draws you in, then don't be put off if you don't get through the first time. or the second time, or the third time. Like if that's where you want to be and you feel yourself drawn to that place, then go and do it. They can reapply again. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. Obviously put in some work before reapplying again, and or reapply and make sure that you sharpen up and hone and focus in on the work that you need to do in order to better prepare you for when you do go back next time. But don't be discouraged and then just go, yeah, I can't do it. Because if you don't reapply or if you don't go back and do it, well then, yeah, what does that say? If you think you can and you think you can't, you're right. So, just try not to be discouraged in that sense if you don't get through the first time. We'd all love to get through first time, believe me. But sometimes that just doesn't happen, or that's not our path, and other things happen and you've got to adapt. And that's part of, in my experience, that's part of being an operator within the unit as well, being able to roll with the punches, so to speak. So anyway, I started focusing in on my training, and that meant, without going into all the details, because honestly, I wouldn't be able to remember all the actual details of my training. I can remember large parts of it, but I couldn't give you, and I couldn't sit here and authentically run through day by day, week by week, month by month, exactly what I did for the 10 months leading up to me going on, stepping foot on the start line of selection, Some of the landmarks that I do have is that I know I got up early, worked on my swimming. Shout out Daniel Cook, one of my section commanders, 2IC section commander in Victor Company, wing commander as well on the wing of the barracks that we were in. So always made sure he kept us in line and that we kept our barracks neat and tidy. But just a really good all-round physically fit, mentally strong and capable individual. That's my memory and recollection of Cookie, and how he led by example through the soldiering that he did. So he was good all round. He was good swimming. He was good running. He was good like strength wise and with the pack on. So I was like, oh man, I need to get better at swimming. I'm rubbish at swimming. So had a healthy diet of early morning swims with him at the Linton Camp pool. And to a stage whereby I got to the stage where I felt a lot more capable, competent in the water anyway. Not a swimmer by any means, but capable and competent enough to swim for long periods of time if I needed to. And so that was very helpful for me, even though the swim test from memory on selection wasn't very long at all. And dare I say, for me personally, I didn't find it very challenging. But I think that's because of the work I put in, like there are some people that fail the swim test here in NZ and in Australia, and I would assume the UK, and I would assume the US, no matter where you go, there's be parts that might be surprising to people that you look at them and go, man, he's a good soldier, physically fit, strong, capable, but fails something that you wouldn't have expected them to fail. And surprisingly, people, as simple as I might think it is, the swim test for the NZSAS, people still fail it. So, you need to prepare in terms of whatever it is that you're looking to do. Preparation is a massive part. So that, was it the 7 Ps, whatever, prior planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance? Or however many Ps there are in that little sentence that's, I assume, fairly well known. But I didn't find the swim test, from memory anyway, I didn't think it was very difficult, which I'm grateful for. But again, because of the work and focus and commitment and discipline that I chose to give to my preparation before going on to selection. So all still in the lead up phase in terms of the first part of your email, bro. So apologies this is taking so long, but you asked for it, and I'm doing my best to try to give as much information, details as I can, and maybe something lands and or resonates with other people that have either gone on and served in a unit like that, or people that may be thinking about going to serve in a unit like that, and or maybe people who may have prepared and tried themselves but maybe were unsuccessful and maybe chose not to go back. I don't know. And or maybe just for the curious George out there, if you know what I'm talking about when I mention Curious George, that cartoon from years ago. maybe just for those people that have a curiosity around, what's this bloody Hori talking about? So anyway, swimming was one of those things. Running, I definitely needed a lot of work on my running. So I did a lot of running, clocked up a lot of kilometers with my running. I did a mix of LSD runs or long, slow distance runs to medium distance runs to, I want to say, I didn't really do any sprints. I didn't do 100-meter sprints or 200-meter sprints or anything like that. I would say I did a fair few 400s and 800s, did a fair few 1.2s, because my 1.2, my 2.4, sorry, wasn't like I was like 10 minutes, 10 minutes 15. I was really average. To be fair, that may even be, and I think that was average for that time. So I wanted to get better, and I needed to get that time down. So I wanted to be under 10 minutes. Then I wanted to be under 9 minutes 30. Then I wanted to be under 9 minutes. So those were goals of mine that I had set for myself. And in order to do that, I need to run. So I did find, and I took some of the tips from Cookie from the swimming, who shared with me that the swimming that he does, because he was very competent at it, really helped him with his breathing when it came to running. It helped him with having a more regular rhythm with his breathing, and he felt like he had more energy when it came to running. So I was like, oh, if that's good enough for him, and he's always near the front on all of our runs that we were doing for battalion and our platoon and company PT, I should say. And if it's good enough for him and I can see him, he's near the front, and then sometimes I can't see him because he's too far in front, then it's good enough for me. So swimming and running became a healthy diet. And when I bumped into Pohatu, and he shared mentally he was good, but physically his legs weren't able to keep up and get him to where he needed to be within the times. He was too slow, basically, on the navigation stuff. That really resonated with me as well. Made me ask myself real questions, genuine questions. Are my legs strong enough? Will I be able to carry that weight for consecutive days over the kilometers and distance that we're going to have to cover, up and over the blinking big bloody yamas or the hills, the features that we're going to be needing to navigate and get up and over on an empty stomach or fairly empty stomach? And can I do that day in, day after day after day? And then top it off, still have the 60 clicker to do at the end. So it was really timely. And so when he shared that with me, I was like, okay, how can I build my base? And for me, it didn't revolve around going into the gym and doing squats. It didn't revolve around going into the gym and working up to a 1 rep, a 3 rep, a 5 rep, an 8 rep max squat with heavy weight. Like that, just right or wrong, that just didn't factor into my head. I looked at from a real simplistic view, and I've always shared this with people that I've spoken with. Selection is simple. Selection in its structure, I don't care what it is. NZ and Australia. UK, I can't speak to that, so I shouldn't speak to it from that perspective or from that lens. But New Zealand and Australia, my experience during my time when I went through at that time was real simple, is how I looked at it. It just wasn't easy. It's the difference. So something can look real simple, doesn't mean it's easy. I looked at selection in terms of the physical requirements of what was required to be able to pass or necessary to be able to be deemed competent to pass and progress and go on to the cycle in real simplistic terms. There's some running that's required, simple. There's some bodyweight movements that's required, simple. There's swimming, simple. There's webbing runs, simple. There's pack work, simple. Navigation, simple, but not easy, all of this stuff. And there's some endurance aspects to it with the Von Temsky and the dunes or the swamp, depending on what we were going to get. And I didn't know that we were going to get the dunes until we were on it. Simple. And there's a 60 clicker. Simple. Like there's those elements of it. When I broke down selection in my own simplistic mind, that's how I looked at it. Selection was simple. It just was not going to be easy. And so with that view, for me, nowhere, if you recall of those things that I just went through, nowhere did I talk about or was it known to me that there was a squat test, or that there was a deadlift test, or that there was a bench press test, or anything like that. So I naturally didn't really focus on those things. Yes, I went to the gym because like the bodybuilding stuff was sort of pretty much that era in the 90s, I guess, is what I want to say anyway. We did a lot of military style PT, log runs, river runs, some might say even CrossFit style type workouts we were doing there, but not with the barbells and stuff, with odd objects, and carrying your partner and in, military uniform or PT kit. But it just didn't enter my mind that going to a gym and focusing on squatting and deadlifting and bench pressing would transfer to a high degree of crossover to an SAS selection. That's not what entered my head. Right or wrong, that's just sort of where I was. Did I go to the gym and lift and try to do weights? Yes, I did. Particularly before I started focusing in on specifically what selection was going to be about. And those simple things that I just outlined earlier, with the bodyweight movements, with the running, the swimming, the webbing runs, the pack work, navigation, etc., those are the things that I started to, for me, felt I needed to focus more in on to give myself a better chance in preparation in the lead up to selection. And I feel like it worked, Some people may have gone about it in a completely different route. I don't know of anybody that just focused on gym stuff though, in preparation for selection. There's people that did gym stuff, but did a lot of the other stuff, a lot of those other things that I just mentioned earlier in terms of what selection was going to require for the New Zealand selection anyway. So that shift in the lead up to my preparation, my mindset, the training that I undertook for selection, I guess you could say was a lot more specific, or specificity, if that's the right term. The periodization and my programming of it, again, I can't give you a play-by-play what that looked like. But I did the swimming, the running, I did a lot of the pack work, and I worked up to what I think is not really necessary. I did work up to 80 kgs in my pack and going out for several hours at a time with that weight on my back. That was mostly out in Linton, that was mostly flat. So out and around Whitmore, through camp and out around, there's this, what they call the Whitmore run, is maybe, I can't remember. I want to say, depending on where you start from and what route you take, I want to say maybe 8 kilometers, around about 8 kilometers, that, like one loop of that. So maybe from the main gate out and around and back to the main gate, maybe 8 kilometers. Yeah, I don't know. It's been ages since I've done it. Maybe it's less. Maybe it's not even 8 kilometers. But the point being is that it was long. For me, it seemed long. And it was an isolated area, not many people, not much traffic, vehicle and or foot traffic on that road or on that loop. And it was good for me mentally to just be out on my own and to struggle. So that aspect of it, there was lots of physical preparation that went into that. I eventually worked up to carrying an 80 kg pack and doing loops like that and other activities like the step-ups. Step-ups was a large part of my diet in terms of trying to strengthen my legs for what I imagined to come on selection. And again, I feel like it worked. Doing step-ups with a heavy weight repetitively, creating your own little sweat puddle in the barracks, probably not ideal as I think about it now. Hence why I did shift a lot of my step-ups into my room, because I didn't want to get in trouble from Cookie and or from any of the other senior soldiers for blinking, leaving a big sweat puddle stain in the hallway of the barracks. Although that was where I started and did do a lot of my step-ups, but I tried to make sure that there wasn't going to be a big puddle. When there did start to be a bit more of an accumulation of sweat equity, let's call it, on the ground, then I shifted into my room, got a little bit smarter about it, laid a towel down on the floor as well to try to soak up some of that. So yeah, there was a lot of work that went into my preparation because I felt that I needed it. as a young person as well. So I'm 20 at that stage. I've turned 20 in 1998 before selection. And selection was later that year. So 20-year-old, young, dumb, full of excitement and feeling like I can do this. So I put in the time, the effort. My recovery must have been okay. There were some days where I felt pretty rubbish and average. I recall getting up and just going and doing the work anyway. Just turned up, didn't feel like the swim, dragged myself out of bed, put the shoes on, went there anyway, sat down, took the shoes off, took the shirt off, dragged my sorry backside towards the lanes of the pool, jumped in the pool to just blink and wake myself up, and then started swimming. And then just got into it, blood flow starts moving, I guess. I'm in the water, I'm here, I've come all this way, I've walked all this way from the barracks, I'm in there now, I'm wet, you might as well bloody put in the work that you were supposed to do. So just got to work. So there was a lot of work, a lot of time spent in that, and the physical prep, the training sessions before rocking up to battalion for your daily check-in and reporting, then going on battalion PT or platoon and or platoon and or company PT, I should say. Then coming back, getting ready, cleaned up, going back, and then showing up for work, whatever those camp responsibilities or work was that we were doing. Knock off work for the day, then go and get some more PT in, then have a feed, and then sleep, get cleaned up, have a sleep, and then wake up and repeat that again day after day, week after week, month after month, leading up to selection. I did give myself a taper, so I think I want to say I had probably, I reckon about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I reckon. Well, somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. Let's say 4 to 7 weeks. Around about that time frame, I dialed my training right back. I just did what I would call maintenance sessions to make sure that I could still run a decent 2.4. Make sure that I could still move pretty well with my pack on my back and that it wasn't feeling heavy. Like this pack weight, this 35 kgs feels not too bad. Webbing feels good. I can still run with my webbing on. I can still swim. I can still do my pull-ups, my push-ups, the sit-ups, the dips. Actually, I don't think we did dips on my selection. It just wasn't a thing at the time. But in battalion, it was, pull-ups and dips were added into the RFL. So the 2.4, the push-ups, the sit-ups was always a staple. And then pull-ups and bar dips got included as part of the battalion RFL anyway. For what we were doing, at least in Victor Company, as far as I know, across the battalion. So there was just the sergeants that we had at the time, and I probably haven't spent enough time acknowledging them. Sergeant McIntosh, Sergeant Clive Douglas, who was my platoon sergeant, but Sergeant Mac was also one of the regulars as well, and Sergeant Hutter were 3 sergeants that I remember. Sergeant Major Diamond, Lou Diamond, I think is his name, had, I want to say Second Lieutenant Edmonds was my platoon commander, and Major Boswell at the time was the Victor Company OC. I think he went on to be Chief of Defence Force, Major Boswell, or was it General Boswell, or Brigadier, whatever his rank was. But Major Boswell was my company OC for Victor Company at the time, or at least while I was there. And so shout out to those sergeants. Like Sergeant Douglas, Sergeant McIntosh, Sergeant Hutter, like they always seemed to be near the front, if not at the front, when it came to the runs for PT. And so it was just a really good example. I'm like, holy heck, I'm getting tuned up by these old men. That's what I thought. As a young 20-year-old, I'm looking out in the distance in front of me and seeing nothing but a clean set of bloody heels from the sergeants and some of the corporals in that as well, that are just blinking, thrashing all of us, the vast majority of our platoon and our company. And I'm just thinking, that's not right. Like, what the hell's going on here? So anyway, that was a bit of a wake-up call as well. So putting in that time and work in the lead up to selection, I used those individuals, those sergeants and other NCOs within the platoon and the company that I was with as sort of little landmarks. There was one guy, we called him a freak, Tim Mackey. Hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. Much love and respect to you, Mac Meister. Mac Daddy, I think was one of his nicknames. But just a freak, man. Fit as all hell. Like running sub-8, 2.4s whenever. Going out, doing lots of runs, like just PT. Strong with a pack on. Strong Lincoln running. Can shift and move his body weight, no sweat. Lean as... and just like, I think, I don't know if he was ever diagnosed with ADHD, but high energy. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had ADHD, but always high energy, good man, like a good person, and cracker, hard case fella. So yeah, there were people like I never come anywhere close to being on that fella's heels. Like he was just like shot out of a gun, that fella, and gone. So him, the sergeants, the NCOs, a number of other fit people within the battalion as well. My first section commander, Corporal Namana, Simon Namana, shout out to him. He was bloody fit too. A little short fella, fit, fast, ran sub-8, hit the hundreds club. I think when we were in Auckland for an exercise at some stage, and we did a RFL, and he met all the requirements, and then hundreds club, sub-8, 2.4. I'm like, bro, you're like the height of an Oompa Loompa. How the hell are you running a sub-8? And I'm still flat out trying to run a sub 930. So, but he did, and he's not that short, but you know, he's shorter than me, like a fair bit shorter than me too. So that guy, just as I think about it now and talk more, there's more and more of these people that come to mind. My apologies for missing people out in terms of my recollections of all of those from Victor Company, and indeed 5 Platoon Victor Company, who were way fitter and faster than me. You know who you are because you were in front of me. So those people, my time there really helped set a good foundation in the lead up to, and then the work that I knew that I needed to put in also played a part. That taper that I was talking about, where I gave myself, and the maintenance sessions, was really just about keeping blood flow, making sure that I didn't drop off too much, and trying to give myself, you know, I'm no sports scientist. I was no sports scientist back then. I'm no sports scientist right now. But I felt like I had enough, I suppose, understanding that selection was going to be hard physically. Like I'm going to be drained, like worse than I've ever been. And I was preparing myself physically and mentally for that. And part of my prep in the lead up was that, well, okay, if it's going to hurt as bad as what I think it's going to hurt, then I want to go onto that as fresh as I possibly can without going onto selection as a blob, you know, as somebody that can no longer run a sub 9 2.4 or can no longer carry the pack because it feels heavy or whatever. So in order to do that, I felt like I needed to dial back the training, just revert back to, or just do, not revert back to, but just drop right down to one training session a day. And I felt that would give me enough. I can still train every day, Monday to Sunday, but just do one training session a day and stop doing these multiple training sessions. And if I am going to do a multiple training session, have one maintenance training session, and then the other session was a relax in the pool or stretching or whatever the case might be, or a relaxing bike or row, just something to flush and move some blood around. Nothing to get the heart rate really high, nothing super long either, nothing that was going to make me feel wrecked at the end. Just something to, like I said, maintain, tick over, and then eat really well. So probably maybe the last part in the lead up, maybe the last couple of parts was just what I was eating. So I was eating whatever I wanted. I'd go to the mess, eat whatever was there, bread and butter pudding. Seemed like there was always bread and butter pudding, but I'd eat that. I didn't mind it. I still don't mind it. Ate whatever. Ate junk food, ate takeaways, ate chocolates, ate lollies, ate ice cream. I had a fridge freezer in my room, and a microwave in my single man room in the barracks. So yeah, if I didn't get to the mess, I always had some ice cream in my freezer, usually. So I would eat that. And I guess just the blessings of being a young fella at that time, being 20 years of age, having a reasonably high metabolism, having somewhat having some sort of physical capability to be able to get up and just put in the work and grind and understand and accept that it's going to suck, it's going to hurt. But if I really want this thing, then I need to put in the work in order to get there. So that's what I did, and that's what I focused on. The eating, yeah, like I said, I just ate whatever. Pizza, burgers, mess cooked food from the being in camp, because I lived in the barracks. All of that stuff. Oh, bloody hell. There's a significant part of the lead up that, I was wrong when I said the last 2 parts. There's actually 3 parts that I need to make sure that I acknowledge. And that's my wife, my now wife. So anyway, I'll come back to that. The eating, people have asked me about that. How was my nutrition? Did I take any supplements? I wasn't taking any supplements. I didn't know the first thing about supplements and or what that could potentially do for me in regards to selection. And one of the main reasons why is because I knew on selection, you're not going to be taking no supplements on selection, brus. So why get used to, this was just my thought, why would I want to get used to and accustomed to taking supplements that there is no way in hell I'm going to be able to take any of that when I'm on selection? I'm going to be flat out just wanting to try to get some food while I'm on selection, let alone worrying about taking whatever supplements or proteins or aminos or whatever else was going at the time. So, and I think that's still true to this day. There may be people that swear by it and use it and used it successfully as part of their preparation and build up to selection, and they get through and pass selection without taking it on selection, but I don't know, maybe they feel like it really helped in their build up to. You know your body better than I do. If that's what you think works for you, then go and do it. But to those that have asked me, and that still from time to time ask me, like, I never took any supplements back then. I don't take any supplements now. I have dabbled in taking protein shakes before, since being out of the military. And even while I was in the army, I did look to take and would take some protein shakes from time to time. I usually had it with full fat milk and with ice cream and mixed it around. And that tasted nice. To me, it was just like having a chocolate milkshake. So that was why I did it. Not because I thought, oh, this is going to pump me up and make me look bigger and make me more capable of being able to do the job. I don't think that's what happens with it. I could be wrong, but that's my simplistic view and take on it anyway. So anyway, hopefully that's enough on the eating side of things, the nutrition and supplement side from my take anyway. And injuries. Injuries is another one before I go to my now wife. Injuries was one that has come up. Did I have any injuries before in the lead up to selection? Short answer to that is no. For NZ, I had one minor one. I rolled my ankle during a basketball game a few weeks before, during my taper period, but a few weeks before I was set to get on the bus and head up to go to selection and report with everybody else. That was annoying because my ankle did swell up a bit, did the old rice stuff, and it seemed to come good. I did have a bit of a limp for a few days. Like I said, it was swollen, but I didn't think it was anything that was going to cause me any issue on selection. I didn't think it was anything. Definitely wasn't a reason for me to go, oh, I can't go on the selection because I rolled my ankle. It's like, yeah, it was a rolled ankle, done and dusted. I felt like I healed and recovered enough before going on selection. In fact, as I sit here and think about that, I don't even know if I thought about my ankle while I was on selection. I was just too busy trying to make sure that I listened to what I was being told to do and then making sure that I did it the way that I had been told to do it. Otherwise, I'd be shining more of a light on me and I wouldn't be a grey man. I'd be a blinking orange marker cone or a bright yellow beacon for, look at that bloody twat over there. So, as I sit here, I don't recall ever thinking about my ankle once I was on the New Zealand selection proper. Maybe I did, but I can't think of it as I sit right here. Anyway, what I would say now is the last part of the lead up is my beautiful wife, the lady that I've been lucky and fortunate enough to be married to since December 1999. And we met whilst I was definitely in the training phase of my preparation for selection. Would have been around June-ish. No good, eh? I'm going to say June. In June, around middle of June, where we actually like met and started courting, started dating each other. I'd seen her beforehand at the gym. People know that story if anybody's followed my channel for a while. Yeah, bugger it. I'll share it here. It's part of this video. I've been going for an hour, 15 minutes. This is probably going to go for a long period of time, bro. And this is just the New Zealand selection and cycle. We haven't even got to the selection yet. This is all lead up stuff. But anyway, the short version is that my wife saw me at the gym. She continued to stalk me. And then she asked me out. And I said, no initially. And then she came back again. She asked, and I said, okay. I felt sorry for her, and I said, yeah, all right. That's not what happened. But parts of that, I did see her in the gym. Went to the gym. I was, doing my gym stuff, training as part of my preparation for selection. Saw her in the gym. Looked at my time. And thought, well, initially I thought, she looks all right. And then looked at my watch. Okay, I'm gonna look to come to the gym. Maybe she comes here regularly. I'm going to look to come here to the gym around about this time. Why am I whispering now? It's not like she's home. I'm going to look to come to this gym. I'm going to look at the Linton gym. I'm going to look to come to the gym about this time every day now. And maybe on the off chance I might see her. Anyway, I did do that. And lo and behold, I saw her pretty much almost every day at the gym at the same time, doing largely the same thing. She'd be over on the bike, stationary bike, do her stuff. I think she did a few other movements and exercises, and then she was gone. And I'm still there. So I never spoke to her at the gym, even though the whole intention of me looking at my watch and going to the gym at that time was specifically so I could strike up a conversation with her. But there was no way. I didn't know how to talk to girls. I'd never asked a girl out. I hadn't even had a girlfriend. So I had no experience, no clue what I was going to do, what to do, if anything was to happen. But regardless, I thought I'm gonna go here and do this anyway. Anyway, a few weeks went by. I decided, well, she does the same thing. I know what. I've got a cunning plan. I'm going to go to the gym, get there nice and early, and I'm going to go over onto the bikes where she goes. She comes in, signs in, goes over to the bike. I'm going to go and hop on the bike pretty much next to the one that she usually uses. Because creatures of habit, I observed after a period of time that she'd come in and that she'd basically, that bike, and the times that we were there was hardly anybody there. The bikes were free, and so she seemed to naturally go and use the same bike each time. I noticed that. People might be going, oh man, this is creepy. This guy was blinking stalking her. And I guess, maybe that was stalkerish behavior, eh? Anyway, it's worked out for the best. We've been married for 20 plus years now. We've got 6 children. So, all's well that ends well. Anyway, I decided to go hop on the bike that I knew was going to be pretty much next to the bike that she would go on. Sure enough, she comes on in. Prior to that, I'm riding the bike and I'm thinking, I'm starting to have second thoughts. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not a good idea. Like, what are you going to say anyway? Like, you don't know what to say. You've never asked a girl out. What are you going to do? And so I'm talking to myself, going, this is a bad idea. Stupid idea. Get off the bike. Just go over and do your normal stuff. Anyway, as I have that thought, she walks in. She walks into the gym, puts her stuff down, walks over towards the bikes, and she looks at me. I look at her, we make eye contact. She has a big smile on her face, a beautiful smile. And she walks over, gets closer, and she just says, "Hi." And I looked at her, I was like, "Hi," and then got off the bike and then left. So I think as she said hi, she's pretty close to the bike by then. Big, beautiful smile on her face. "Hi." And I'm like, "Hi." She's hopping on the bike. And as she's hopping on the bike, that's when I'm getting off. And then I just do a runner down to the other end of the gym and then just start doing weights. So that was the conversation that I had with my now wife. Didn't say anything else. Just a funny experience now, but at the time I just thought to myself, "You blinking!" I was doing these ones. I was chinning myself, giving myself uppercuts, imaginary uppercuts, for not staying there and trying to engage in a conversation with this girl who I clearly liked. So anyway, time went by. I never went back to those bikes again. I didn't try. I was just like, I'm not trying that again. I stayed away from the bikes. I did continue to see her there at the gym. Never spoke to her. And then what happened? Then we were out. Obviously, I assume with our friends. I was out with my friends. Didn't go out with her. And then we're at a club called Park at the Bar. What was it? Some of the nicknames, Pākehā on the marae, that people would call it sometimes, but it was like a darkies bar where there's lots of the R&B, hip hop, the cool music, I would say, that I was into and that my mates were into. So that's where we went. We went to Park at the Bar, and she was there, and she come up. This is all still part of the lead up because I'm still training for selection. Still having those moments where I'm going out, but at this stage, I'm not really drinking as much as what I used to. And anyway, I'm there. Didn't realize she's there. I was actually sitting down with some of my mates, and she came right up to me. Come right up on my right side. I remember that. I'm sitting there because that's the way that I turn to look. Puts her hand on my shoulder, then takes her hand off and puts it down on her lap. So she's standing sort of bent over looking at me, and asked me if I would like to dance. And I was like, inside, I was excited as. I was like, hell yes, I'd want to dance. But at the same time, when I could hear the music that was being played, I was like, hell no, not to this song. So I hassle her and tease her and say that she must have come and asked me to a song called, like, it must have been the Macarena or something like that. And I was like, there's no way I'm getting up and dancing to the Macarena. So I said no. But I didn't just say no. I said, nah, well, I said, not to this song, another song, like, a better song, a cooler song. And she's like, oh, okay. And she had a smile, like, again, beautiful smile, and then left, walked off. And I thought, you idiot. Like, I definitely need to give myself some uppercuts when I get back to the barracks or at some point, because I just thought to myself, there's no way in hell she's coming back. I've just said no. I said hi and avoided her and took off at the gym. I don't say anything to her. She comes up and asks me out of nowhere if I want to dance. And I say no. You say no. I'm talking to myself thinking, you idiot. Anyway, a few songs go by. She comes back and asks me again to dance. Yes, you'll be relieved. I said yes. And I'm pretty sure it was Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It. So I had a chance to get my fig jam on and try to bust a move of just how good I thought I was, or just how good I think I am. And we went out, we danced, had a great time. Really enjoyed it. I was, I was stoked. In terms of, I was like, wow. And I started thinking to myself, yeah, she likes me. That's what I thought anyway. I mean, I don't know, you tell me. If a young lady comes up, asks you to dance, and you say no, not this one, another song, a better song, and she leaves, and she does then come back and ask you for that dance, and you go up and you have a good time, I don't know, like I said, I didn't have any girlfriends before, so I don't know. But I'm thinking, yeah, she likes me. So I'm thinking, yes. Anyway, we go through that. We have the dance. Shout out Montel Jordan. This is how we do it. And I must have danced well enough to warrant her coming back to me later on and then sharing with me and her telling me that she did like me. So I must have been right. So anyway, this is all part of that lead up. We're in that same club. What happened? Oh, yeah. One of the boys, actually. So prior to her coming up and having a chat with me, actually, before one of the boys started getting into an altercation, actually, she'd come up, asked if she could speak with me. And so I said, oh, yeah. And because I was with my friends at the time, I thought that was a little strange when she said, could I speak with you? I thought, oh, why didn't she just talk with me there and then? But I guess because my mates and stuff are around, maybe it's not something that she wanted to talk about there or bring up there. So I thought, oh, yeah, cool. So then I got up and we walked out, sort of at Park of the Boat at the time, there was this bit of a corridor that I remember, where you could go down the corridor and then there was this sort of offshoot area as you're going in, it would be to the left. As you're going out of the club, it would be on the right. Maybe it was just the doorway towards, it wasn't the toilets because the toilets are inside. So anyway, there was this little offshoot. Went out there, the bouncers are out the front, people are in the club. There's, a little bit of foot traffic moving in and out of that corridor because it's the sort of the one way in and out of the club at that time. We're off to the side talking, chatting, and basically, not really talking. She just proceeds to say, I just wanted to let you know, words to the effect of, I like you. Those are the words that she said. I just wanted to let you know that, I like you. And I was thinking straight away, I said, well, I like you too. And I was thinking again inside, I'm excited, right? And I'm thinking, this is awesome. Like dreams come true sort of moment. I see a girl, I like her. She doesn't know I've been stalking her at the gym, or at least I hope she doesn't know or doesn't feel like I've been stalking her at the gym. We have a dance together. I like her, but she's told me first that she likes me. And I'm like, oh, well, cool. I can tell her now that I like her. And then it just goes from there. We have a chat. I can't remember anything else of what we spoke about other than her telling me that she liked me and then me responding saying, I like you too. And then from there, we clearly stood there and talked a bit more, but I don't know what was said. Anyway, after that, or whilst we're there, one of my mates, there's a bit of a scuffle happening, and it's one of my mates. I look out and I can see him, and he's in a bit of a shoving match with some other guys who I don't know. So, you're not leaving your brothers when they're in an altercation, especially with some bloody dirtbag civvies. That was the thought at the time anyway. Civvies are evil. They're not, but that was just sort of, I suppose, some of the mindset that we had. And I didn't know. They could have been soldiers, just a different part of the military. Anyway, I then go, I say to my wife, my now wife, and say, hey, listen, I got to go. One of the boys something's going on. She was cool. She goes, yeah, no worries. And then that was it. Left. Didn't talk to her for the rest of that night. We went out. There was a bit of a scuffle. My mate tuned up one of the other twats that was there. They left, but then they came back and drove around the corner. So I was still there with my mate. They looked to come out. I don't think they realized or knew that we would still be there. I think they were going to try and ambush our mate by himself. And we come out, and then they jump back in their car and they buggered off. So I remember the same people that were getting into that car. We got I got a few hits on one of the people in the front passenger seat because a group of them sort of piled into this vehicle and then they buggered off. But they obviously circled back around looking for my mate. And they must have thought that he was going to be on his own by then. But no, we were still around. So anyway, I never spoke with her again. Didn't see her the rest of that night. Ended up traveling back to the barracks. Told one of my best mates about what had happened. And the bloody bugger, Harry is his name. There's a surname, but so we just called each other by surnames. And he said to me words to the effect of, and he goes, she's probably just joking, bro. She's probably just lying. That's what he said to me. And you know what? I started to believe him. I thought to myself, yeah, I just thought there's no way. This girl, she's so beautiful. She's not going to come and ask me out. She's not going to come and tell me that she likes me. Nah, she must be up to no good, was what I thought. And anyway, when he said that, we got back to camp, got dropped off at the gate, paid the taxi, walking back into camp. And I thought to myself, yeah, I think he's right. She must have been joking. Must have been a lie. Anyway, I thought nothing else of it. Didn't think about going up and speaking to her at the gym or anything like that. If I saw her, I just thought, I'll just leave it. Anyway, I want to say the next night, I don't think it was that night. The next night, got a phone call to my barrack block. So I must have told her I was in Victor Company, must have told her I was in Hinton Barracks, and the internal lines at the time, the landlines, you could call between the barracks. She was obviously in the female barracks and got a call. And lo and behold, my bloody best mate at the time, who told me that she must have been lying, was the guy that answered the phone. And he comes down and gets me in my room and says, "Hey, bro, there's a phone call for you." And I was like, "Hey." And he goes, "Yeah, phone call upstairs." I was like, "Who was it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a chick, bro." And I was like, I started to get excited. I was thinking, could it be? Could it be her? Then I was thinking, oh, maybe it's my mum calling. But anyway, it wasn't mum. I went up and he came up. I remember him coming up and he was standing on the side, just had this cheeky smile on his face, like looking like, Anyway, I said hello, and then it was her. And and then she spoke. And then she says, "Do you know who this is?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And then and she's like, "Okay, who is it?" And then I said the name. She's like, "Oh, yeah." And then again, I can't really remember what she said or what we spoke about. But what I do recall is us then, from that night on, catching up in the barracks and going for these walks around camp in the evening, in that initial sort of dating, courting phase. And they were just, to me, it was awesome. I really enjoyed those walks and getting to know each other. We progressively went from just walking and talking, keep your hands to yourselves, hands in the pockets, my hands in my pockets, to eventually, then there's a hand holding and walking along and holding hands. And I remember thinking, like just feeling her hand felt really warm, felt really soft, felt really small. Those are the thoughts that I have that come to mind. But it was, it was exciting to me anyway. I don't know that I've gotten into this much detail talking about this sort of thing with regards to dating my now wife during a period of time when I was focused on and preparing for selection. So yeah, like that stuff happened. We would end the night with, I think we went from a kiss on the cheek to a kiss on the lips, to a hug, kiss on the cheek, to then later on to then actually a hug and a kiss on the lips. And then seeing her off to her barracks, watching her walk off to me going to my barracks. And and then just I would be thinking about her. But then at the same time, switching back to, okay, I got work to do. I bloody this is where I was at. I haven't done my pack march, so a bit late. It's after 10 o'clock. Sometimes it's after 11 o'clock. But the work doesn't stop. So get my pack on and get my black backside outside and go get this work done. Didn't really, at that late in the evenings, didn't really look to do the step-ups in my barracks block in the corridor or in the room, just because at that time, like single-man rooms in a barrack block, rooms are very close to each other. It's going to be pretty annoying and noisy for those in the barracks, particularly my wing commander, who probably would have given me a hiding if I had have done something like that and gone on for 2-3 hours while he's trying to sleep, him and others, and all they can hear is dum, 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 just hearing that blinking constantly thudding. So pack on and outside, time to go pound the pavement, sort of thing. And though that time with her, or those walks, were good motivation too. Like they just sort of occupied my mind in terms of me thinking about her, me also thinking about selection, and then having an understanding of, okay, is this going to work? I don't know if this is going to work relationship-wise. If all goes well, because of where I saw myself and what I was intent on doing, I was like, well, I'm going to be in Auckland. She's going to be down here in Palmerston North. So it's probably not going to work. Plus, my thinking was when I get through selection, I get on cycle. I'm going to be on cycle for probably pretty much a year, most better part of a year, I should say. And so I'm probably not going to see her very much, if at all. So, she'll probably find somebody else by that stage. Anyway, I'd let her know eventually, hey, listen, I'm going on selection. This is all part of the lead up. I'm going to be looking to go on selection for the SAS. I felt she needed to know. I let her know and said, don't tell anybody else about it though. Like, I'm letting you know because we are now at this stage where we're boyfriend and girlfriend. So I needed her to know what I was focused on, why I joined the army, and where I saw myself, where I was going. And I did that. And she was cool with it. She goes, her initial reply was, oh, okay, well, yeah, we can stay together till then. Meaning we can just date each other till October, till I go on selection, and then, then we go our separate ways. And I thought, awesome. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's do that. And so we did. We were dating each other. Anyway, as it got closer to selection, I'm doing all my training still in the background. We're still going for our walks. Then I got to get my training in because I, didn't do it at that time. Or sometimes I would get my training in before the walk, so then we could just walk later, and then I didn't have to worry about putting my gear on and going out and getting the training in because I'd already done it. And then it got closer to selection, and thankfully for me, and I like to think for her as well, like we fell in love with each other, and we realized and felt we didn't want to just stop when it came time for me going on selection. And so we both decided and thought, well, how about we just give it a crack, do this long distance relationship thing. I trust you, you trust me, and let's give it a crack. Let's see how this goes. And she was happy with that. So that's what we did. And yeah, what are we, 2026 now? So 27 years of marriage, pretty much, or nearly 27 years at the end of this year of marriage, and been together for 28 years, basically. It hasn't been all sunshine and roses, but as I sit here and reflect on that, I wouldn't change it. It's awesome. So she's stuck by me through all of that, and how I bloody almost just bypassed that as part of the lead up to what your specific question is here in your email. Thank you for this. Yeah, she probably would have been giving me uppercuts. No, she wouldn't have. She probably would have been quite glad that I didn't talk about it, to be fair. But yeah, that's an important part of my lead up to going on the NZ selection. And if you're still here after this hour and 40 minutes of me not even having got to my time on the NZ selection, blank, and shout out to you because that is a big download in terms of, and or waffle, depending on how you want to look at it, in terms of what I've been talking about here so far. But anyway, it is what it is. And so people will either listen to it or they won't. And I don't particularly care either way. It's content for my channel, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's that. That's the lead up. I think that's all the relevant parts I want to say in terms of my lead up to going on selection. Yes, I was anxious. Yes, I was concerned. Yes, I wanted to represent my battalion well, my company, my platoon, my leaders well. I wanted to represent my family and myself well. There's all that stuff naturally, I think, for anybody that looks to want to go and do something and do it well. I'm the same when it comes to YouTube. I'd love to represent myself well. I'd love to represent the unit well and the military in general. I'd love to do that. Am I doing that? I don't know. I'd love to do that. If I get feedback saying, yeah, doing all right, or nah, you're not, I have to be honest, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing anyway. So, and I'm going to, with best intentions, depending on what the topic is or the topics are, I'm going to try to, if it's about the military as an example, I'm going to try to represent the military as well as I can in a positive frame. If it's something else, then I'm going to, try to apply the appropriate level of representation to whatever that thing is as well as I can. Sometimes I might be, some might say unhinged or unfiltered or inaccurate or biased, whatever. Again, like those sort of comments, I don't particularly care. Like I get plenty of those, and I'm aware of a number of my biases. There's probably a number of biases that I'm not aware of, but I don't think it matters at the end of the day. There's going to be people that think my content's okay, some people that like it, some people that hate it, some people that have just no idea. I'm just going to be here and keep doing what I'm doing. So hence why the long-term view that I have for doing YouTube and being, dare I say, a YouTuber is a long-term vision for me. It's not a short-term quick fix, make a lot of money in a short period of time and whatever and become famous or popular or whatever. It's about creating content for me that I enjoy, that lands and resonates with certain people that maybe have an interest in it, that can be positive in some way. For the most part, I like to and hope that it's positive in some sort of way. Maybe gives a bit of an insight to certain things and or gives a different take and or perspective, that at the end of the day, maybe there's a little bit of education in there, maybe and hopefully there's some entertainment in there, and that it's hopefully authentic in terms of where it's coming from, that it's from me, it's not AI, and it's just a regular, everyday, dare I say, normal person trying his hand in a new field and looking to do the best that he can at it. And along the way, if there are other people who are thinking about wanting to do similar things or different things, and if they can take something in a positive frame from my little space here and what I do, then I think that's a good thing. So, yeah, anyway, bloody hell, I think I went off track there with regards to the lead up to selection. But those aspects, I think where I may have been trying to tie that into the lead up is just in and around the feelings of uncertainty, I guess, and anxiety that I mentioned earlier, and maybe even fear. Dare I say fear? I don't know if I felt fear going on to selection. Maybe I did. I definitely felt anxious. I definitely felt concerned to the point of, will I be good enough? Will I be able to hack it? Will I be able to handle what it is that they throw at me? Or will I crumble? And will I just go, yeah, nah, bugger this. I thought I wanted to do this. I thought I could do this, but turns out I can't. So I probably had those sort of thoughts. And I think if anything, again, that fear of, if I use that term fear, that concern or worry, or maybe it was a fear of failing, again, just drew me in to that unknown, to that desire and wanting to test myself on something like selection. And yeah, and the results are what they are. It is what it is in terms of what happened. So that's the lead up. What did you say? Lead up to during selection. Wow. Okay. So on selection, I can't remember play by play or day by day, but I can remember some key landmarks of selection. Obviously, the anxiety is there. I remember wondering a fair bit, why are we standing around for so long just staring at this iron fence as we're in the compound and just doing nothing? Like, why aren't we? I thought I was going to be doing more things, like physically. I thought we were going to be running around everywhere, doing weapon handling drills, getting just smashed with PT, getting fit. That's what I thought. I thought there's going to be a whole bunch of activities that are going to be used to assess our comprehension used to assess our sense of urgency, used to assess our teamwork, a whole bunch of things. Like, this was what I had been preparing myself for. And so when we were standing there for long periods of time, just staring at the fence, saying nothing, and nobody talking to us, I remember thinking to myself, what the bloody hell's going on here? So what's happening? But I did also think, okay, they're likely assessing us. Are we fidgeting? Will we keep still? Are we going to be whispering away? Can we, are we at a stage, are there people there that just can't help themselves, that have to fidget and move and talk? All of that sort of stuff started entering my head, and I just accepted at that point, okay, this is just part of the process. And I also accepted and felt grateful that we weren't getting run around or run off our feet with all these different activities, because I felt like, okay, I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. Even though I packed on some weight specifically because I knew I was going to shrink come the end of selection based on all the stories that I'd heard and people that I'd seen who'd come off selection. So I definitely ate well during that taper to intentionally put weight on. And I figured, and so for that, because people have often asked me, so I weighed about, I've said in other videos I was about 110. That's because I reckon I was close enough too. I was about 108 kilos the last time I weighed myself at the scales at the gym in Linton. And I remember seeing on the scales, I had pants on, t-shirt and jersey, and my shoes on, so I didn't take my shoes off, so maybe there's a little bit of extra weight there. Track pants is what I had on, and a jersey, t-shirt and jersey. And I remember seeing on the scales 108 kilos. So about 110, 108 kilos specifically, based on the last time I saw what I weighed on the scales at the gym, taking into consideration having track pants on and a jersey on and my shoes on. So maybe it's a little bit lighter, but anyway, close enough to 110. But I wasn't I don't think I was. I don't think I was a fat, blobby, rubbish 108 kilos, like I felt, I wasn't blinking a bodybuilding Adonis or anything like that either, but I wasn't, well, you know what I mean. I wasn't incapable of running or swimming or carrying a pack or doing all the things that I felt that I needed to do on selection, which was what was going to be the case on selection. So that's where I was from a physical perspective, weight-wise, mentally. That's where I was in terms of what I was thinking about and people that I didn't want to let down, including myself. And dare I say, potentially even some of the people that may have been doubting me to go on selection and actually pass. So like, who's this young bloody 20-year-old twat? It's only been in battalion for a little over a year and going on the SAS selection. Like, he stands no chance. I'm sure, although I never came across people openly coming out and speaking to me like that, I'm sure there were probably people that had those thoughts. So anyway, that all worked for me in terms of being fuel, adding fuel to the fire. Maybe it helped me. Potentially, I just fabricated those thoughts in my head about people being against me, and maybe nobody was. Who knows? But what I do know is that me having those thoughts and me wanting to shut those people up worked in my favor. So create whatever storylines you want to, I suppose, in your own head, which can, and in my experience at least, can help you and or will likely help you in terms of when you're looking to achieve or chase things that you want to do. So yeah, that's my take on that. Selection had some pre-selection. So there was a few days pre-selection. I want to say 4 or 5 days of pre-selection, whereby that's not the actual testing, but you are still being assessed in terms of how you present, how you communicate, all the sort of stuff that you would expect that they would be looking to factor in to somebody looking to serve in the unit. You are still being assessed. There's some aptitude testing in there. There was some physical problem solving, team building, or not so much team building, but teamwork exercises in there. There were some individual things that you needed to do. There was some sit-down, face-to-face interviews with the psych. There was some sit-down paperwork, written, I want to say assignments or assessments from a psych evaluation perspective to do. And there were some getting out and doing some basic navigation with a directing staff or an already badge member, directing staff member in small teams. So there was still a fair bit of work done during that pre-selection phase, but not to the point of like selection. And we were still, I want to say we were still getting at least 2 meals. Maybe it was 3 meals, but it definitely at least 2 meals a day. So we were still getting breakfast, normal breakfast, and we were still getting, maybe it was a cut lunch that we got when we were out, especially out doing some of the navigation stuff. And then I want to say that we got dinner as well. So we still got dinner in the evening. So that was pre-selection, made up of those different sort of activities and assessments and, dare I say, tests, whatever people want to call them, and some practice runs. There was a time trial run in there as well on the navigation piece for the pre-selection. There was a little navigation time trial where individual navigation test. We slept outside on that under Hoochies the night before, got up early, and then I think the nav trial started at some stage during that day. Individually, you go up, check in, you get given a grid reference of where you need to be, got given a short amount of time to go and work that out, and then come back and report to that directing staff member, tell them where you are, where you're heading, the distances it is, how long you expect it to take you, get confirmation from the directing staff. They'll look at their watch and then they'll give you the 3, 2, 1, go, and then head off. And then, you got to make that time trial because that's going to be a good indicator in terms of whether or not you're going to be able to meet the timings on the actual testing proper when the selection starts, the testing phase. So anyway, got through that. That pre-selection, I think that's when one of the guys got lost. So I want to say he was potentially an Air Force guy that was on selection. So credit to him for coming on selection in the first place, or anybody non-military, non-infantry that goes on selection. I think that's awesome. Like, huge respect and credit to those people. I could be wrong, but I want to say I think it was an Air Force guy that on the time trial got lost, got geographically misplaced or embarrassed for a period of time. And we were basically, the rest of us were at the end point because you left individually. I don't know how far apart we left, but we left individually. A little bit of time period in between each person. Then you all met up at the top of this feature, and then we're waiting there under the directing staff's instructions, and you're just sitting there quiet. We were sitting down. We weren't standing at that time. And you're just waiting. Don't say anything. Don't get caught talking to anybody. And just sit there and shut your mouth. And then we started hearing that over the radio for a certain candidate that they don't know where he is, that he hasn't checked in, etc. So we were there for longer than we needed to be. And I just recall on the time trial, he must have left before me. And I don't know how far ahead before me, but as we're walking along this particular part of the time trial, there's a main creek or river, creek I want to say, stream, to our left. And based on where we needed to get to, you needed to just simply keep that river system or stream or creek on your left the entire time. Do not cross it. If it's on your right, you're going the wrong way. So stay basically paralleling it. It's off to your left. You know it's there. You can see it and crack on. A few little weaving arounds and then head up to the right, up the top of this feature. And then get there. So the whole time, that creek, stream, river, whatever it was, well, no, it wasn't a river, but a stream system. Keep that on your left and you'll be good. And I just remember seeing a guy heading left and he obviously crossed over the stream or river creek system and was continuing to go left. And I just thought to myself, I did actually pause and had a look, pulled out my map and had a look. Looked at my bearing, looked at the ground, looked at that river system, go, that's the only one there. Looked straight ahead. I could see other marker panels of other candidates straight ahead as well. And I'm looking at my map. And then I look out to the left at that guy. And then I look straight ahead and I see the orange bouncing marker panels. And I'm thinking to myself, that something's not right here. I actually thought in that moment, maybe that's a directing staff trying to trick us, trying to trick people to go off track and not trust their bearing, their distances, and the information that I have just given to the directing staff before I got given the green light to go. And I just thought, no, I'm not following that fella. I carried on. Thankfully, that's what I did. But again, my basics of navigation was enough, even though I've said in the lead up I would spend more time. And I would. Like, more nav and competent and confidence you have in it, the better, in my opinion. And that proved its weight in gold by the time I went over to Australia. But anyway, back to this. That pre-selection, that time trial was done. That fellow was found, and then I believe he was removed from the course. He wasn't allowed to continue with the selection because too high a risk in terms of getting lost on what was deemed to be a very simple and basic navigational leg from a time trial perspective, and somebody being so completely way off the trail, way off the beaten track, so to speak. I think it was just too high risk. We didn't have, we weren't running PLBs or little tracking devices at that stage. We did have a 77 set radio with the spare lithium battery. And so you did have that in your frequencies, and for radio you did have, actually I don't know if we had blank rounds. We might have had blank rounds for selection. I'm not sure if we did, and they would have just been for the loss procedure, so the as well as radioing up to try to draw attention so people can vector in on your location and then go, we found you. So anyway, that's what happened with that guy, I think. Don't quote me on it. That's what I recall anyway. And then after that, we were last night and then in the barracks, I think, in camp where we were in Auckland. And then the next day we were into testing. And testing was a bit of a, not a surprise, but still a shock to the system. Early start, reporting, pitch black, out the front of the mess, standing there with your gear on, saying nothing. Just lined up, stand there, shut your mouth, don't say anything. Get the call, have your packs down, go in, start forming up, and get your breakfast. And that's where the teaspoon of baked beans, the one egg, the one sausage, and the one slice of bread, for me comes flooding back home, because that's what it was at that time. Like there was a teaspoon, and you put it into the tray, the big food press of baked beans, and if you're lucky, you got 3 or 4 baked beans on your teaspoon, and you've got a normal dinner size plate, and you just tap that onto your plate, and then put the spoon back down, move on to the next thing. And I'm pretty sure I want to say I grabbed a boiled egg, or maybe I grabbed a fried egg or a poached egg. Grabbed an egg anyway. Maybe it was a poached egg. Don't ask me why. Maybe it just looked nicer at that time. So 1 egg is what we got, 1 slice of bread and a sausage. And that was our breakfast for the first 4 days of the selection. No lunch, and dinner was soup. So in there, I've described it as some hot water with some salt and pepper and a little bit of mixed peas and corn, and maybe some carrots into the hot box. If you're lucky, I don't recall ever scooping out potatoes, kumara, veggies, meat, like what people would imagine a stew or a soup to have included in it. It was just water, and I remember getting a few bits and pieces of peas and corn into mine. Now, maybe it was because maybe I didn't scoop my ladle deep enough. Cloudy water, so it was probably like soup packets in there, were mixed around, so it wasn't like clear water. When it was just watery. That's what the soup was. There wasn't any substance to it, like I said, like the potatoes, the kumara, the meat, the veggies, like no substance, no heartiness to it, is the easiest way to describe it, that I recall anyway on my selection when it came to soup for dinner. So yeah, that was basically breakfast and dinner for the first 4 days. Lunch, when you're day one, probably not so bad. Day one was all the physical stuff. So I don't remember exactly which order after that, but I want to say we did the 2.4 first. Then we come back and lined up, got into the push-ups and the sit-ups. Actually, I don't even know if we did pull-ups on my selection back then, because again, like I said, in the army, the pull-ups and dips weren't part of at the time, weren't part of the required fitness level, or the RFL it was called. It was just a 2.4 run, push-ups and sit-ups. Those 3 exercises. Battalion started to introduce pull-ups and dips, and pull-ups was 8. I want to say 8 pull-ups, overhand grip, strict pull-ups, all the way down, all the way up, head and chin over the bar, all the way down, no kipping, no swinging, and no like trying to, hike your knees up and then to generate momentum to get up. And the dips was 12 from memory. So just bar dips all the way down, all the way up, full extend to the arms, locking them out. Those 2 additional exercises were brought into the RFL, which I think was only applied to the battalion at that time. And I liked it. I thought, this is good. Like, we should be, if we're in a combat role, we should be at a higher level of fitness than the general army, because of the nature of the work that we would potentially have to do if called up and needing to deploy. So I thought it was, again, those were things that I just thought were really good. But I don't think we did pull-ups or dips on my selection in NZ. So we get through that, the run, the push-ups, the sit-ups. Sit-ups were easy. I think everybody found those really easy. So I don't remember what the numbers were. I think we just went to whatever the maximum was and then stopped, whether it was 80 or 100 or whatever. Push-ups, I think we had to do a minimum 30 or maybe minimum 35. And I recall I stopped at around about 43, 44 for me, purely because I wanted to do a little bit extra, but also I wanted to do extra, but still have what I felt plenty in reserve. So I may have been able to do probably 60 plus push-ups, but I felt like that sort of 43, 44 was a pretty good number to show that I've put in some work and prepared well, and that I'm not just looking to just do the bare minimum in terms of whatever the bare minimum was for the push-ups at that time. So we get through that. I don't know whether it was the pack march that came next or the swim, but it was one of those 2 things. So let's say pack march and then swim, and then hares and hounds, or hounds and hares, however people describe it these days. And that's basically your webbing run, boots, long sleeve shirt, webbing, weapon, running. I think it was about a 9 kilometer. I want to say anywhere between 6 to 9 kilometers of mostly uphill, gradual uphill, windy dirt gravel track, which is where we got taken to. I don't know the name of the area where we got taken to, but started out with this fairly longish sort of stretch and straight, and then it started going up and wound off to the left, and then it just seemed like it constantly continued winding its way up with a gradual incline the whole time. Got into the end of that, and then again you're standing around waiting. Can't remember what other activities they got us to do after that. There were some other activities, and there was also some more waiting around, some more hurry up and wait, standing. I mean, we didn't really know if we had passed. Like the 2.4, I knew that I'd passed based on the run times, because of that being the first activity. If you come in over time, like, you see you later, bro, car keats. So I knew that I'd passed that, knew that I'd passed the physical exercise piece, knew I'd passed the pack march, and the swim test, because I hadn't been removed. Anybody that failed them was basically removed. If you fail any of these mandatory tests, that's it. You're not staying there to continue anymore. I felt like I knew I must have passed the hares and hounds because I hadn't been removed again. But again, when you're standing there waiting and not talking and not knowing and nobody's talking to you, you do start to wonder, like, are they just assessing the times, and are they going to come back and then call out names and then go, yep, you lot, go pack your bags, you're out of here? Like, you do have a lot of those thoughts running through your head, along with, I wonder what's next. I wonder what we're going to be doing next. Oh, bloody hell, like all these other thoughts running through your mind. But again, it's still day one. The rope climb and all that sort of stuff was part of I think on the back end of the pack march, as well as your fireman's carry and, other activities which make up those tests. But I was still there and just thought to myself, awesome, I'm still here, man. So I'm not quitting. I'm just going to wait and see what happens next. try to quieten my mind at that time. When I say quieten the mind, I don't know if I was thinking of those terms specifically, but I'm using that terminology and that wording now. What I mean by that is more just trying to clear my head for the most part, especially when we were standing there just staring at the fence, saying nothing and doing nothing. Try to not get too overwhelmed with thinking about and occupying my mind with, I wonder what's happening next. I wonder what they're going to make us do. Are we going to have to do this? Are we going to have to do that? Oh, I wonder how much time we're going to have, etc., etc. So reason for that is because I just felt like that's not going to do me any good. There's no point worrying about what hasn't happened yet, and or there's no point worrying about something that I haven't been asked to do. I can give my time, focus, energy, and attention to that as and when that time happens. And it will happen. It's just a matter of when, but it's not happening now. So don't waste my time with it right now. Hopefully that makes sense. Those are the sorts of thoughts that were running through my head anyway. And I found that worked pretty good for me. What else happened on day one? Oh, day one into the evening, we were in a classroom. We're pretty tired and buggered by this stage. And seems like we're just being kept awake. And Morse code was one of the activities that we had to learn, or the da-das and da-dits and da-da-da-da and da-da-da and da-da-da and blah, blah, blah. There's lots of stuff being played for us to try to learn. You're not learning Morse code in one day. Well, I wasn't anyway. And not in one evening. It wasn't even a whole day. We got exposed to it for, I want to say a few hours. It felt like hours. There was a few of these happening, like in the classroom, like head whipping and eyes getting heavy, trying to keep them awake, listening to the stuff, hoping that you don't get called out or get a slap across the head for being disrespectful and nodding off during the lecture. And then having to listen to radio recordings of Morse code and then trying to recall what all the dits and das mean, and then writing down what the potential message is. I have no idea what the message is and or was. I don't even know that I got the message. I don't even know if I got a single letter right. Actually, I probably got SOS right. I probably got those, or S and O right, in terms of the letters, because those are very simple and universally, I think, well known. But yeah, I for the life of me, I couldn't tell you what the message was that we needed to potentially decode in order to then be released and go and get some rest before the next day. So anyway, my recollection is day one ended with the Morse code, probably till around midnight. It might have been slightly before, it could have been slightly after, but it was late and we didn't get much time. So that whole day, your wet togs, your sweaty, smelly uniform from all the pack marching and webbing runs and stuff that you've done, your PT kit from the 2.4, etc. Like, there's admin that needs to be done to get your gear squared away and sorted out before reporting early for day 2 on selection the next day. So, yep, you get back to the barracks and everybody's jockeying for position A to get cleaned up, shower, freshen up a bit, get your laundry and stuff in, and then repack and get your gear sorted and squared away for the next day. So that's what I recall us doing when we were back, and then trying to get our head down for, a couple of hours or so, which, to be fair, like, it didn't seem like much at the time, but it was clearly enough. So get the head down, get up for day 2, same sort of breakfast, report time nice and early. And now, though, we're into the navigation. 3 days from memory of open country navigation, which the dreaded open country nav, which was some of the talk and chatter around back at battalion, in and around where people fail selection. This is where the lack of food, the lack of sleep, and the stress and pressure of needing to cover lots of distance with an unknown time frame that you just have to move as fast as you can, carrying the weight on your pack, really starts to set in. And so the dreaded nav phase, open country nav phase for the NZ selection, is part of I'm in it now, and I'm thinking, okay, yep, this is where it's starting. This is where selection starts. Is also another comment that I'd heard. Selection actually starts on day 2, which is day 1 of the open country nav, or people have said selection starts when the navigation phase starts. Those were comments that I'd heard about selection before I'd gone on. And I was like, okay, cool. So day 1 is in the books. It's good. It counts. But now is where selection's going to start, because the people were talking about, when they shared those comments earlier that I just shared, they spoke about that's when the energy is really feeling depleted. You've had that miserable little breakfast, but it's not even touched the sides. And now you're about to do a full day of navigation, covering lots of distance, going up and down a lot of very steep features, and you don't know what your time is that you need to come in at the last checkpoint by. All you know is you need to try to not stop when you're going uphill. You need to try to shuffle and, dare I say, run where you can on the flats. And you need to try to run all the downhills as often and as fast as you can, but also as safely as you can. So that added just a whole nother level of stress and pressure to the mind as well. When it came to, okay, navigation phase is starting now. And each day was like that. My first day of open country navigation, I had a really good day. We left from memory in alphabetical order. I don't know if, this is going back over 20 years ago, peeps. So take it for what it's worth. I think I've always shared that. Things are likely very different now in terms of structure, order, process, application process, prerequisites, what they do, maybe how long the actual testing phase is, etc. Like, I couldn't tell you exactly what it's like these days. And if I could, I don't know that I would share it here, because, I don't know that it's relevant, so they've got, I suppose, if they want people to have a better idea of where things are at, people in the military can likely find out and ask people that have done it, and or go through the application process. And or if the unit wants people to have a better idea, they could just do another documentary. So for me, my experience, day 1 of open country nav, we left in alphabetical order. I left around about the middle because of my surname starting with H. And I remember, for me, day 1, even though I left in the middle, I finished near the front. So I finished, from memory, I finished 3rd. So I must have left, I think we started with, I want to say there was 40 odd, but I think in the documentary that I watched, I think it said there was about 37 or 38 people on the selection. So maybe that's what it was. So I left around about the middle of that number. Not that there would have been that many. There wouldn't have been 38 if it was 38 or 40 come day 2, because there were already people that basically didn't pass stuff and weren't there. And at least one was removed after pre-selection, as I mentioned. So, but still, I want to say there's probably about 30 odd people. So I would have left somewhere in the middle-ish of that number, and finishing 3rd overall, which I didn't know was the last checkpoint until we got there, and then got told to sit down and wait. But that was a good feeling. I was like, oh, awesome. Like, I left in the middle. I knew that I had passed a few people because I was passing people along the way. And I felt really good. I felt like I had a lot of energy too. So I wasn't feeling the strain or the fatigue at that stage, not on day 2 of selection, which is day 1 of the open country nav. I wasn't feeling massively drained. And the fact that I finished 3rd for that day, for day 1, gave me, again, just a real good energy boost. I was like, oh, awesome. I was like, I don't think I recall ever feeling this isn't so bad. I just remember feeling awesome. I'm in a good space, physically, mentally, and I've finished near the front of the pack for the navigation. So what I had heard prior to going on selection as well is that you left alphabetical order day 1, and then typically after that, the order for day 2 and day 3 in navigation, if you're still there, is that you left slowest to quickest. So whoever was slowest, so say you left, I don't know, say you left first for ease of blank and understanding. Say you left first, but you finished last, but you're still within the time frame, you would then be leaving first again the next day, and the next day if you're still there, if you haven't already been removed for being too slow. I don't know if that's a good example in terms of, leaving first, finishing last. You would still end up leaving first. But put it this way, if you left last and finished first, you would be continuing to leave last. So if your alphabetical order, the way that it worked out, meant that you were leaving last, but you finished, let's say you finished 5th out of 30 people, you were going to be likely leaving last again because of the ground that you've made up and the time that you've finished. You've finished in a much faster time than those that have left, than anybody that's left before you. Potentially, maybe not so much the first person, depending on if they left first and finished first and they just blitzed it. But you're doing well, is what I'm getting at. So for me, having left in that sort of, my memory is sort of middle-ish of the pack, maybe not quite the middle, maybe closer towards the front, but not towards the back either. Definitely not at the front. And so with several people having left before me and finishing third, I knew that, okay, cool. All things being equal, and if the information that I've received is right, I can expect to be leaving near the back. Not necessarily last, but near the back. And as it was, day 2, I left near the back. Day 3, I left near the back as well. So I felt like, okay, I must be doing okay from a time perspective. Not okay from a soldiering attitude, how I'm presenting, all that sort of stuff perspective, because I didn't know. I was trying to give as good of an account of myself as I could every time I showed up to the checkpoints. But purely from a time perspective for the nav, I felt like I must have been doing okay because I was being made to leave near the back. I don't think I ever left last, but I do recall looking around and there only literally being maybe 3 or 4 other people to leave after I left the checkpoint on day 2 and day 3. So I figured, and there was a bunch of people that left before me, so I figured I must be doing all right for time. And the fact that I wasn't being called up, or that they weren't doing alphabetical order, and that I wasn't being called up towards the front, that gave me again some confidence that time-wise, I must have been doing all right. Second day, I know I've spoken about this in other videos, I had a bit of a miserable day. I can't remember between which checkpoint it was, but it was between one of the checkpoints where I just got geographically embarrassed, misplaced. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad, because the reason that I say that is because thankfully, with a bit of luck, after checking my map and scratching my head and going, what the hell, where have I gone wrong? Then looking around, and it seemed like I was stuck for ages, but then looking around and then seeing some orange marker panels a few hundred meters off in the distance, heading in the direction that I should have been on. That's why I say luck. I then looked at my map, looked at them. I was like, bloody hell. Then I knew where I was, had a bit of an idea of where I may have gone wrong at a particular junction, and then just bloody did a runner, like ran towards where those candidates were, managed to overtake some of them, and then finished up at the end of day 2, not where I would have liked, but not dead last anyway. So I still finished, I want to say, not middle of the road. I probably finished more towards where I left in terms of that day. So where I left near the back, I probably finished near the back in terms of the number of people that were coming through. So I still must have done enough, because day 3 I still left near the back of the cohort and wasn't being made to leave from the front. So it was pretty well understood at that time that those that were leaving first were, had some work to do, really had to make up some time, and they were being too slow or considered slow. So anyway, that was the open country navigation. My one little mishap there in terms of being misplacing myself, and then looking to get myself back on track, a little bit of a panic, a little bit of luck, all those things combined. And then again, the physical prep and work that I had put in leading up to selection enabled me to be able to run and chase down those other candidates that I saw with the orange panels bouncing off in the distance. So that's what I did. Geez, bloody hell, how long is it? This is over 2 hours. I think what I'll do is I'm going to finish selection, and then I'll do a separate video for cycle, because this is over 2 hours, bros, of me talking. I don't know. Maybe people just break it up and play it and don't worry about, there's not really anything for you to watch. It's just me talking. So it'd be pretty boring if you're just staring at me Maybe if I had an editor, I could edit and have different things pop up on the video, but yeah, maybe later. I probably won't do that. So anyway, the open country navigation is done. Part of that, I can't remember whether it might have been day 3 of the open country navigation. I remember the training warrant officer asking me when I got to the end of what was that day, did you climb any fences with your pack on? And I answered him honestly. I said, yes, staff. Because the reason that he asked me that question is because we were all told under no circumstances were we to climb any fences with our packs on our backs. We were to, if we came to a fence and we needed to climb it to get over to continue, we were to take our pack off, lift it over the fence, place it down, then climb over the fence, put our pack back on, and then continue on our merry way. That's going to take time. That's what I thought. But that's going to chew time. I don't want to be wasting time. I'm going to take a risk. That's what I thought. And that's what I did. If I came to fences, if we couldn't open the fence, because some of it was, I guess, private farmland, some of it that we were on for the open country nav. And so we were told if we go through a gate, make sure that we close every gate behind us. So, the hook, unhook it, open it, close it, put it back on. Don't leave it open if you turn around and see somebody behind you and leave it for them to close it. Like every single time, every person, doesn't matter. You go through it, open it, go through, close it. That stuff I did. The stuff that I didn't do, I didn't strictly obey. I did at times, but not the whole time. I didn't strictly obey the instruction that we received to take our pack off, place it over, climb the fence, put your pack back on, then carry on. A lot of times, I just climbed the fence with my pack on and then carried on, shuffling or running where I could and or just not stopping. And I got called out on it and asked. And I thought, just tell the truth. Don't try and lie. And so I did. Told the truth. I said, yes, staff, I did. And I think he proceeded to ask me, what was the instruction you were given? And so I repeated that instruction, which is what I've just shared here in this video. He had a not very happy look on his face with me. And then he told me to go and sit over there. And what I saw appeared to be 2 groups of candidates that were on selection. And I thought my heart sank. So when I got sent over to this particular group, and there was maybe, I want to say 3, 4 others, I instantly thought, this is the group we're getting kicked off because we didn't follow the instructions. That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm going to get told they're going to wait till everybody's in, then they're going to stand us up, then they're going to tell us, this group, get on that vehicle, you're being returned back to camp, pack your gear up and bugger off back to your unit. And this group, you're moving on to the next phase. So sitting in these 2 groups, I'm sitting there and I'm starting to clean my weapon. Got my gear, checking my gear, clean my weapon, and then just sit there and wait. And I'm just thinking, bloody hell, you idiot. You should have just followed the instructions strictly the whole time. Then I was sitting there thinking, oh, well, okay, lesson learned. Next time I'll make sure that I do that. So this is all that uncertainty. And we're sitting there for a while. Nobody's talking to us. I've just planted all these thoughts in my own head and leading myself to believe that this is what's going to happen. So anyway, I sit there and then we get up and we all get on the vehicles. Nothing's said about who's going where, who's, people getting kicked off or not. And then we go back or we go to the next location and then we're getting ready for what's going to be the next phase. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, cool, I haven't been kicked off. So again, the need to quieten my mind and not get overwhelmed or occupy my mind with too much stuff. Just keep things as simplistic as I can. And then let the suffering and pain happen when it happens. And then just work through that and figure out a way to, navigate my way through those periods when they happened. And they did happen. So anyway, after the navigation phase and not getting kicked off is a big sigh of relief. But now it's like, okay, cool. We're at the halfway mark pretty much. And we're about to go into what was either going to be the dunes or the swamp. And I didn't know which one it was going to be. But 20 to 24 hours of exercise von Timsky, dunes or swamp, carrying a jerry can with your pack, with your weapon. It's a miserable experience, everybody who's done it. or the people that I know that have described it. Nobody has said, oh man, it was so amazing. It was just awesome. I loved it. It was such a great team bonding exercise. It's just miserable, like at least for me anyway. And that's what you've asked for in terms of my take and my experiences of selection. The New Zealand one anyway. That aspect was miserable. Sand everywhere, chafing, skin rubbing and peeling off your neck, off your underarms, off your thighs, off your feet, off your hands. It sucked. And so there's no, that's not even trying to make it sound worse than what it is. It's just the honest truth. That's what my experience was with it. Boring, stressful, made harder when you got blinking people that are clearly physically well prepared, like Dale on the First Among Equals documentary. He was a TF when he did it. Awesome guy, but clearly very physically well prepared. And it sucked being in his group even more because that bloody bastard, I call him in a loving way, the bloody bastard was listening and obeying what the directing staff said verbatim when he said, keep up with me. When Dale was at the front with his pack, with his weapon, and with 2 jerry cans, he was hard work for me to try to keep up with. He was literally trying to stay on the heels of the directing staff. And I'm thinking to myself, and the directing staff, they don't need to. They've been through this. They don't need to be carrying a big, heavy pack. They don't need to be carrying the jerry can or 2 jerry cans and or a weapon. They've been through all of this, right? They don't need to be doing that. So they're walking off fairly, what I'd say, clean skin for the most part, bit of a webbing, a little day pack, got some snacks, and they can, fluids and stuff that they can take. And they're moving. And we're trying to, failing, but trying to keep up with them. Well, Dale, bloody hell, man. That bloody bugger. He was putting our group under the pump with regards to trying to keep up. He's trying to keep up with the staff. We're trying to keep up with him. And the person who's got 2 jerry cans is at the front of your team. That's just how we worked it. They could set the pace. Understandable, because the rest of us have only got 1 jerry can. But you all rotate through at different times. Well, anyway, it was no fun when he was at the front. Even with 2 bloody jerry cans. So anyway, the less exposure we could give him at the front, the better for all of us. It didn't stop us from getting punishments. It didn't stop us from getting told off and being told to keep up. But I knew, as young as I was, and we knew with the sergeants and the corporals of the group that I was in with, even though Dale Fry was in there and he was a TF, we knew that this is not about keeping up right on the directing staff's heels. This is about, will you still be here at the end? Do you still want to be in this job that is going to make you do something as boring and as miserable as this? Do you still want to be here? Will you still be here? Will you put up with the aches and pains, the blisters? Will you put up with when it gets dark and cold and it's the middle of the night and you're shivering and we've made you crawl into the ocean and through wet sand and then made you sit on a feature and just let that sea breeze collect you and make you even colder? Will you still be here? Do you still want to be here? Do you still want to do this job? And so for people, if they don't have their why, that Simon Sinek famous piece that's on the interwebs, starting with why, not that that was a thing back then for me. I didn't have that mindset of start with why, but I had enough of, in terms of as I reflect, I have enough of what I view now as my why for being there, which saw me through. And Von Temsky and the dunes and that miserable pain and suffering that I felt personally wasn't wrapped up in me and how I was feeling. I was able to personally lift and shift that pain that I was feeling and invest that and focus that on other people that I had imagined in my head that I needed to get to with these jerry cans. To me, the jerry cans symbolized and represented, and I think I've spoken about this in other videos that I've done, symbolized medical supplies, symbolized food and water, symbolized some sort of what's the name? Bloody, what's the term? Not refueling. Bloody, not refurbish either. Oh, I can't think of the term. Bloody hell, it just slips my mind. But those things, the jerry cans and that, and us moving for that period of time and just continuing to move and needing to put one foot in front of the other, symbolized to me an opportunity to go and help other people, or another patrol is what I had imagined in my head. Another patrol who was suffering, who was struggling, who didn't have what they needed and needed what we had. And the only way that they were going to be able to get out of the rut or the hole that they were in was if I and the other members of my small group, because we were split up into groups for that particular phase, got to where we needed to get to with the jerry cans that we had. And so those are the sorts of thoughts that I had in my mind. Yes, you've asked for it, so I'm sharing it. During the nighttime, did my jerry can lid get a little bit loosened, and did water start to fall out of it? 100% from me, my perspective, yes. Yes, it did. I don't know how. Somehow the lids just came loose. Maybe I bumped and slipped and just accidentally rubbed against them a few times, and the lid came loose. And water just happened to come out in the nighttime when the directing staff couldn't see. All these sorts of, dare I say, calculated risks, much like the climbing the fence that I spoke about earlier when I thought I was going to be kicked off selection because I got told to go sit with that group. And that's all it was, that group. It didn't say go sit with that group who also climbed the fence without taking their packs off. It was just go sit with that group. Again, it could have just been one of the mental things that they put there to start people to think and doubt and go, oh man, I'm going to get kicked off for what I've done, so I might as well quit. Because there have been people that have got inside their own heads and thought about things and gone, oh, looks like they're going to kick me off anyway, so I might as well just quit now. Don't do it. Don't do it. I've said it on many videos, like, make them kick you off or remove you, and or you break something, and or, heaven forbid, if it's that important to you, you pass away. It was, at least to me. So those were my 3 ways that I was coming off the course. Some people might go, no, that's crazy. It's not worth dying for. And fair enough. Like, if that's where you stand, that's your feeling and your thought about it, that's all good. Like, each to their own, eh? But anyway, coming back to the dunes, yes, my lids did loosen themselves off so that I could lighten the load. Some I figured out, and I think we all figured out. Holy heck, some people's is like they just were carrying an empty jerry can. So some people went the extra mile with regards to that. I don't know, and it wasn't completely empty. I'm exaggerating there, but it was pretty light. And so some people, yeah, definitely took some massive calculated risks. Now, there were times where when we got tasked with doing different tasks, you did come back and you naturally ended up with a different jerry can, just based on the fatigue that you're under, being told to run or move over here and crawl over here and do this, do that, and then come back to your jerry can and then pick up a jerry can. Like, you do naturally end up picking up a different jerry can. And sometimes you were lucky and you got, well, lucky for a period of time, you were lucky and got a lighter jerry can than what you remember having. And sometimes you were not so fortunate and you got a heavier one than what you recall your one being. So then you potentially start cursing in your own head and go, bloody hell, who is this? Why isn't this fellow lightening his bloody jerry can? Anyway, those sorts of shenanigans happened. People did quit as it got dark in the middle of the night into the Von Temsky. There was a halftime break from memory. There was no food on it though. The halftime break just warranted or entailed having some water and having to sit down. So sitting down, got to rest against our packs, jerry cans off to the side, still got your weapon, webbing on, and you just sit there and get a bit of a breather, give the body a rest, give your legs a rest, etc., give your hands a rest, an opportunity to put some tape on if you want to. So some people did tape up their hands. Some people did have to add extra tape to their feet. I don't recall needing to add any extra tape to my feet. I think I had tape on my hands initially, and then prior to, like, a few hours before the halfway mark, my tape started bunching up, and it was just becoming more of a hindrance than a help. So I ended up ripping my tape off, which a number of us did, stuffed it in my pocket, and I didn't use any more tape after that. Just suck it and then get the blisters like everybody else, and the sand just rubs and makes it worse and a little bit more painful when you get the sand in there and rubbing against your skin and the jerry can going away. So, but it is what it is. It's like, well, it's not going to kill me. And for me, in my mind, I had a bigger purpose to where I imagined myself going with these jerry cans, which was really just up and down and around these dunes in circles, for want of a better term, for that period of time, and never eventually getting to, and I knew we would never get to, these imaginary people that I made up in my head. But it was something that I felt would be helpful to me, but also potentially maybe one day relevant. So that's how I viewed it. And I think that helped me anyway. So that was the dunes, my recollections of that. I do recall one of the directing staff saying, "Who reckons they're still going to be here at the end?" And I thought to myself, you bloody bastard. That's what I thought. I thought, if you, so arrogantly, in my young naivety at 20 on the selection, I didn't make eye contact with him. But I remember looking at him and then looking away after he said that comment and thinking to myself, thinking, stuff you. If you can pass the selection, I can bloody pass. That was just my mindset, my wiring. Right or wrong, that's what I thought. And again, it was another piece of fuel to add to the fire for me with regards to my intention of wanting to go and serve in the SAS. So all these little bits of fuel added were really helpful. Anyway, where are we up to? So Von Tempsky is done. Halfway's done. Second half's done. And at the end of Von Tempsky, we got a delicious TV dinner hotbox meal. There was a normal amount of baked beans. There was maybe 2 sausages. There was some potatoes in there. Might have even been some corn. We got, I want to say, a couple of slices of bread to have with it, I think. Or maybe there was no bread. Maybe there was more meat and food in it, but no bread. But anyway, it was a good meal. It was a good, like, normal meal. And on the back end of the 4 days, now 5 days after Von Tempsky, of having next to nothing in terms of fuel for the body, that TV dinner hotbox was just inhaled. It was devoured. Like, we scoffed that thing. And then the truck started moving, started pulling away, and we got told we needed to get up and get onto the truck as soon as we could with our gear. So, guys then start scrambling, webbing on, rifle, pack, grabbing whatever other gear that we might need to, and then chasing the Unimog. So the drivers are moving. Obviously, this must have been part of the instruction given to the support staff and driving the Mog, the Unimog, and they're moving, and we're starting to try to chase after it, and then it starts moving a bit faster, and we're bloody trying to run as hard as we could. Bearing in mind, we've still just tried to scoff our food as well. We've just come off these other 5 days so far, and now we're chasing the Unimog, and we're thinking, what the bloody hell? Anyway, we're running, and then it starts to slow down, which is good. It starts to slow right down, and then eventually we catch up to it, start chucking gear up, and then eventually it stops. And then we get onto the Mog, and then we get taken to the next area, which is going to be the start of the 3 days, what I recall, 3 days close country navigation. I recall it as being 3 days anyway. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was only 2 days. But for some reason, I recall that it was 3 days close country navigation. Those that have been there and done it, and or those that were on my selection that passed and completed it with me, can correct me. Like, they might come back and go, nah, bro, it was only 2. Or, nah, bro, it was only 1. But I recall it being 3 days, and that was the chatter before selection as well. 3 days open country, 3 days close country with Von Tempsky in the middle. And at the end of the close country was the 60 clicker. So anyway, this is my recollection of it. Day 1 of close country nav, I remember getting to the first checkpoints, and I don't think you'll mind me saying, Wiremu Moffat, who was and or is the current RSM of the New Zealand Defence Force, His dad was also, rest in peace to his dad, was also a member of the New Zealand SAS. Well, Moff was a member of the NZSAS as well. From what I understand, I think he was a free faller. He may have done other insertions as well, but I think that's where he was first, maybe within the unit, and then maybe he did other insertions after. But shout out to Wiramu Moffat. Got to the first checkpoint, got the grid references and stuff, and then while I was of where I needed to go to next, while I was working it out, he came over. He doesn't remember this. I'm pretty sure. I think when I've had a message to him before, I think he's replied saying that he doesn't remember it, which is fine. I remember it because I was the one that was still hungry. But going through on the first checkpoint, got the grid reference. I'm working it out. He did come over with a ration pack, the Anzac biscuits. He pulled out a biscuit and he just stood there, looked at me and he says, "Do you want a biscuit?" That was it. And I looked at him and I thought in my head, is this a test? If I say yes, am I going to get kicked off? If I eat it, am I going to get kicked off? If I say no, am I missing out? Like all these things in an instant just started running through my mind. Anyway, as soon as those thoughts went through my head, instantly the words out of my mouth were, "Yes, staff." Or "Yes, please, staff," I should say. And then he just extended his hand and gave me the biscuit. One biscuit. I grabbed it and I did at that stage I didn't care. I was still just hungry. I just shoved it all in my mouth and ate it. Worked out where I was, worked out where I needed to get to, reported to him again. Here's where I am. That's where I need to get to. This is my bearing. This is the distance. This is how long I think it will take me. And then all right, away you go. Did a radio check and then headed off. So I think that was part of the process that we had to do, a radio check as well. Anyway, headed off, just grateful for the biscuit. I could feel that, could still taste it in my taste buds as I'm walking off. And then I head off. Anyway, during that, at some stage, I want to say mostly during day one, I got caught 2 or 3 times in the close country nav and got bundled into, after getting some exercise, some push-ups and stuff to do, then got told to get in the back of the rover. And the lads, these were guys that from memory, I think were fairly recently badged members of the unit. They were now obviously chasing us around and directing staff on the course. Drove me back. Well, they said that we would be driven back about 3 kilometers. I don't know whether they drove me or anybody back 3 kilometers, but I recall them saying if we were caught, we'd be driven back 3 kilometers. Obviously, now we've got to make up more time in close country, another 3 kilometers on top of the distance that we've already got to make and the timing that we don't know for the close country if we're going to make it or not. So maybe they only drove me back a few hundred meters. Maybe they only drove me back 1 kilometer or 1.5 kilometers or whatever. But the fact is, I got caught several times, got some punishments in the form of exercises, got told to get on the rover, got driven back a few times because I got caught, like I said, a few times, and then told to get out and then needed to make up the ground again. And that was so annoying. But as I think about it now, it's also really funny. I think it's funny anyway. It wasn't funny at the time. And then just basically, I needed to make more calculated risks. I've been caught several times. I've been driven back. I don't know how far. I would have had a rough idea when I looked at the map and tried to work out where I was from where I needed to get to. But I can't, like right now, I can't recall how far back I was or away now that I was from the checkpoint. What I knew was I needed to make some more calculated risks, and we were told don't use the roads. So what did I do? I used the roads to try to make up time. Wasn't on the roads the whole time, like that just wasn't possible. Just based on where a number of the checkpoints are and they were in the bush. So you couldn't just get to it all the way on a number of them by just being on the roads. But you could use the roads to your advantage to make up some ground to then cut back and get on a bearing and then make your way, to where the checkpoints were. So that's what I did. And thankfully, I didn't get caught on the roads at that time when I made that decision. And that's somewhat interesting to me, maybe ironic, that when I was trying to avoid the roads and not use them to get to where I needed to, that's when I got caught. Like I was probably 20, 30 meters away paralleling some of the roads just because some of the going was easier and it was a good reference and landmark and was in the direction anyway. but I didn't expect the directing staff to then be coming along on rovers and quads and then jump out and chase us and catch us, which they would because they're clean skin as well and they're fit, and we are blinking heavily depleted and got our packs and everything on, so they're going to catch us even with a 30-40 meter head start at that time and then drag us back. So yeah, I guess the ironic thing, if that's the right word, when I wasn't on the roads is when I got caught, and when I did use the roads to try to make up time because I had been caught is when I didn't get caught. I nearly got caught, but that's another part of the story. So anyway, carried on, got through the navigation that one time that I recall where thankfully my head was on a bit of a swivel and I looked back and saw a dust cloud in the background and what looked like a quad bike. And I was like, that is directing staff if ever I've seen an angry cloud of smoke coming towards me. So I broke track, ran straight into the bush, zigzagged and weaved, and then went in punched in as far as I could, because I still had probably a few hundred meters from when I turned back and saw that big dust cloud coming towards me on the gravel road that they were on, and ran. So I knew I wasn't just going to go 20, 30 meters. I was going to get in as far as I could. Don't know how far I got in, but I know I got in a fair way, took my pack off, laid down flat, laid my pack down, threw a whole bunch of bushes and stuff over the top of me in case they started coming through there. And, the hope was that they wouldn't see me and that they'd walk past and then go back and hopefully still not see me if they did come right in as far as I'd gotten in. And thankfully, they didn't come right in, but they did stop roughly in the vicinity of where they must have seen me break track and go into the bush. And then I just heard them yelling out, "Hey, get out here. We know who you are. I know who you are. You better get out here now." And I was thinking to myself, there is no way in hell you know who I am, bruz. I'm not coming out. And I just stayed there. And I think I do recall having a bit of a giggle and a smile on my face, like a little bit of like shrugging my shoulders and laughing. Not out loud, though. And then just lying there at the same time thinking, bloody hell, if I get caught, do not have a smile on my face if I get caught, because I'm just going to get blinking punished with something even worse, maybe even kicked off the course. Anyway, they left after a period of time, or it sounded like they left, but I was like, you're not tricking me. Like, there could have been two of yous on that quad. So when I heard the quad start up and then head off, I still just laid there and wait. And then I started slowly peeking up, having a look over, like looking through the bush. Could I see anything? Looking around, like not just in the direction of where I thought the quad bike was and where I assumed they likely went back to, but started scanning around the other areas. And I must have stayed there. I reckon I probably should have stayed there longer, but I reckon I probably stayed there for maybe another, I want to say 10, 15 minutes. In hindsight, I probably should have stayed there longer, actually. Maybe closer to an hour and just waited. But I didn't. And waited, looked, didn't see anything, and then got up and moved. Didn't go back out onto that road. Stayed in the bush and then navigated my way, got to the checkpoints, and then went on from there. I do recall getting into some of the checkpoints. I can't remember the exact rules, but there were some specific rules at night time. Obviously, don't move at night time, just in case of injury. Like, you don't want to walk and put your foot in the wrong place and then snap your ankle or roll it badly or fall over, put your arm out, snap your arm, or worse, blink and fall and blink and have a stake in your neck or in your head or in your chest or in your arm or in your hand if you go to put it out to try to brace yourself. Like, just, some common sense needs to apply. And, it's not a good idea to be moving pitch black. We weren't running NVGs on selection, and it's not like we had a lot of, I don't recall there being a lot of moonlight in terms of when we were navigating and moving. So to play it safe, move hard and as fast as you can, take very short minimal breaks during the close country in your close country phase of the navigation, and just look to move as hard and for as long as you can from first light to last light, and then hoochie up and get some rest. You're on your own then, so you can rest for as long as you want during the day. It's up to you. Don't advise it, don't recommend it, but you could do that. You can have a good long sleep once you hoochie up and then, get your bedding out and go to sleep. You can sleep till 10 o'clock if you want to, but I don't advise it. You got work and distance to cover. So I recall last light, first light, like being up early before first light, getting out and moving as soon as I could, as early as I could. As soon as there was, like starting to a little bit of a glimmer in terms of visibility, and I felt it was safe enough for me, then I started moving. Yeah, and that's pretty much close country. I remember that happening. I remember there being, and I could be wrong, but 2 nights where I slept on my own during the close country navigation, and the 3 days. So I remember getting in on the last day, late in the afternoon, for the last day of the close country navigation, and then being told, to go down there where some others were. There were a couple of people already there before me. John McNutt, I think, was one of the guys already there before me, one of the officers, and then just hoochie up and relax. Basically, don't talk to anybody else was also one of the instructions. So that's what I did. Went down there, hoochied up, didn't talk to anybody, or if we did, we sort of whispered. And we were like, is this the last checkpoint? Like, yeah, it's the last checkpoint. And so this would then be the day, the afternoon, the evening before what would be what we imagined, and we were right, the 60 clicker to be the next day. That evening, after the close country navigation, we also got, I recall us getting another hot box meal. So another TV dinner tray in those little foil containers. Again, packed with food, a good, healthy, decent meal in there, much like the one that we got after Von Timsky, because during the close country navigation, there was we couldn't eat the ration pack. That's one thing I should have mentioned. We were given a 24-hour ration pack that was in our pack, and to stay in our pack for the whole time of selection, not to touch it unless we were told to, and or not to touch it unless we were in a legitimate emergency and we needed to, either start a fire, have some food, whatever. Otherwise, not to touch it. So that was sitting there. So during the close country navigation, apart from getting a biscuit from Wiramu Moffat at checkpoint 1 on day 1, I didn't eat. I don't recall us eating anything else. We had water, like there was always water at the checkpoints, jerry cans to fill up. Maybe there might have been a soup given at one of the checkpoints, possibly. I don't recall that though, so I'm guessing here, trying to dust off the old cobwebs and remember. But we were running on fumes. I remember personally running on fumes in the close country navigation phase. Don't get me wrong, the TV dinner meal after Von Timsky was awesome. The biscuit from Moff at checkpoint 1 on day 1 of the open country of the close country navigation was awesome, but it was peanuts in the bigger scheme of things when you're going 48, 72 hours of close country navigation over long distances and having no food and just having water. So, the weight came off, man. The weight really came off me in terms of what I went on selection on. And when I weighed myself on the scales at the gym back at Linton after, and even prior to that. So the scales in the gym at Linton, obviously we'd had some food and stuff by then, but more so the scale in camp when we weighed ourselves, and then just seeing the number and being blown away. So anyway, close country, very little food. That last night, the night before what would be the 60 clicker the next day, nice big meal. Scoffed that, like devoured that, licking the tray to get every last bit that I could out of it, and went to bed with like a satisfied tummy. Still could have eaten more, like a satisfied guts. Like still could have eaten more. If there was more food, I would have eaten it, but there wasn't. They didn't give us any more, but I was happy with that. Anyway, the next day we left slowest to quickest on the 60 clicker is how I remember it. There were guys that came in after us on the close country navigation that had to leave first. And those of us that were there, I guess, dare I say first, so there were 2 other people there before me at the end of the close country navigation. I left third to last. So, the people left slowest to quickest. And just everybody that started that 60 clicker on that selection in NZ in 98 all completed it, which was amazing. There was one guy I should have mentioned during the close country. I bumped into a guy, I think he's still serving in there now. He might be on a TAD to Waiuru at the moment, but his feet were wrecked. His feet looked, I think, munted. on day one of the close country. I remember seeing him in the bush at one stage, taking his boots and socks off and looking to tend to with some medical care to his feet, and his feet were like, they looked horrendous to me. I was like, bloody hell, how is this fella still walking? Anyway, he was. He stepped off first from memory on our 60 clicker, and I'm pretty sure he come in last, understandably, with his feet. The fact was he still finished it within time, and he still finished it. Like, just with the state that his feet were in was just mind-blowing to me. So I've spoken about what shape I was in, how poor a shape I was in terms of at the end of that, feet swollen like balloons, etc. And they were. But man, like how he completed that, I don't know. Like, it's just, yeah, amazing to me. I'd love to interview him and just talk to him and drill him about that and go, bro, what did you do? What was going through your head? Like, how do you keep taking another step when there's no skin on your feet? Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, clearly he just had this incredible mindset and determination that that's what he was going to do. And that's what he did. So anyway, the 60 clicker was, for me, again, one of those things that I thought, this is the last thing. And then at the same time, I thought, is this the last thing? Maybe it's not. So I viewed it as, this is the last thing, and I'm going to give it heaps. Like, I feel not too bad, and I'm going to give it heaps. We also got given the instruction that on the 60 clicker, we could help ourselves and eat the 24-hour ration pack that we had been given. So that was awesome. That was a bonus. So we could basically stop whenever we wanted. You couldn't stop together in a group or be with anybody. It had to be individual effort. But you could stop whenever you wanted, and you could rest for as long as you want, and you could eat what was in the ration pack as and when you wanted. So I was like, don't have to tell me twice, bros. I'm coming straight for those chocky bars and the can of fruit and the muesli bars and the biscuits, like, and the condensed milk, the jam, everything. Like, I'm eating everything. The sugar sachets. Probably I don't remember stopping to have a brew. I didn't make me a coffee or anything like that. I scoffed the hot chocolate. Like, I was just eating the stuff as it was. I don't remember getting out the hexie and cooking up anything. Had the cordial, chucked that in. Yeah, like high sugar, whatever I could get, all the carbs I could get, anything I could get out of the cans of food and the packets. Like, I was into it. So though that was a great boost. I didn't eat it all one hit, so I did spread that out over the course. Like, took some short breaks, had a feed. I probably should have taken more breaks than what I did, in hindsight. But got there at the end, and it was just a awesome feeling at the end to when the directing staff come over and shook my hand and said, well done, mate. That's the end of selection. Go over there, put your pack down, get yourself a brew on if you want. There's some food there. And yeah, well done. That was basically it. When you're ready, hop in the back of the truck, because there were a couple of other people already in there. So I left third to last, and I finished third. John McNutt, who left last, from my understanding, finished first. So he passed all of us and finished first, which was just, yeah, shout out to that fellow. Rest in peace to Major John McNutt when he passed away, after being badged as a member in the NZSAS. So, yeah, but it was just awesome. And it was just the sense of, whoa, now I could relax. And I didn't care what happened after that. They could have told me accepted for cycle or not accepted for cycle. Obviously, I preferred if they told me I was accepted for cycle, but I didn't care. If I got told, well done for passing or completing selection, but we don't think you're ready for cycle just yet, so but you can come back and do selection again, I would have been just as happy, because I knew that I could pass it. I knew that I could get through it. And that was one of the big unknowns for me. And I was grateful to be able to get through that and be able to answer that question for myself. So that just really set wheels in motion for me in terms of, this is prior to getting the decision to go into cycle, that no matter what happens now, no matter what I hear, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this again, because I know that I can do it. If I've done it once, I can do it again. And so thankfully, that isn't what happened. I did get the nod along with the others, the majority of those of us that completed the selection, and we got the green light and told that we were going to be starting cycle the following year, which was 1999. So selection end of 1998, and would be starting cycle in 1999. And with that being said, man, I'm going to wrap this up here because that's nearly 3 hours on here of me yapping away. But man, I've enjoyed this. Shout out to this person who sent the email, but to those that have sent similar requests as well for, I suppose, putting me onto this to give a bit of a download of what selection was like for me and the lead up to, during, and once I finished selection. I think when I come back, I'll talk, maybe I'll do that now actually, to round this out so that I can maybe talk a bit more on cycle when it comes time, the lead up to cycle and then being on cycle. So selection has finished. We go get cleaned up. We're hobbling and limping up to, because we've got to report the next morning, up to the compound where the unit was. And it was called the group at that time, NZSAS group, because it wasn't, I suppose it didn't have the numbers for a regiment, I guess, is my simplistic way of looking at it. It used to be referred to commonly as one NZSAS group, or GP on the end. And so that's what I remember it as. It's referred to as the regiment now, or the unit. The SAS, it's always had the SAS or the unit. NZSAS, at least during my time when I went through selection cycle, wasn't commonly referred to as the regiment or as a regiment. It was referred to as the group, or just the group. So anyway, that's that piece. We finish, we hobble up, we go get the news. Some have seen the documentary, seen Sergeant Bolton, who got told no on there. I didn't realise that was his third time on selection, but everything worked out well for him in the end, and he, did make it into the unit from what I've been told, what I'm aware of anyway, which is awesome. I think he went there again or got in when I was already in the Australian Army. Not necessarily in the Australian Regiment, but in the Australian Army by that time. So shout out to him. Yeah, and basically after that instruction, there was a bit of a barbecue. Funnily enough, I didn't really feel like I could eat that much. I don't know, something was just going on with my guts. Oh, one of the lads from over in Australia, Nick Miles. Shout out, Nick. Cheers, bro. I'll come back to you. I'll give you a call after this. He's over in Australia, so I'll call him after. But I don't recall really being able to feeling too hungry at that time. I think it's just something. I think just maybe the release of all the emotions and everything. I don't know. Maybe it just didn't sit well with my guts or something. But I don't remember really being able to eat too much and or really feeling that hungry, surprisingly, on the next day after selection was over and we had completed it and we were just waiting to hear if we had been accepted for the cycle. So everybody cycles through. I limp in, as well as I can, trying to march as well as I can into the office. Gingerly punch my foot in, give a salute to the officer, to the CO, cut it away after he cuts his away, and then he gives me the good news, and I'm happy. I didn't smile in there, tried to keep a straight face, even though I wanted to smile. I think I was probably just in a lot of pain and really just wanted to get out of there and try to sit down and take the weight off my feet. Plus, I was just stoked that, I'd been given the green light. Marched out of there, went outside, got to catch up with the boys, including some of those that got told no. Congratulations and commiserations, bit of a bittersweet moment, when you're with guys that you come to know on something like the selection. And then basically, I think we were not long after that, we basically packed up all our gear, got our marching orders, and then bundled into a bus, I think, and then just driven back to where we were from. So the vast majority of us were from Linton. So that's where we went. And there was a couple of guys from 2nd 1st Battalion. And then the TF guys, Dale and Daryl, I'm not sure where they were from particularly. I think Dale might have been up in Auckland, so he was just going to head home, and he was TF anyway. But he would have been getting ready to go to corps training, infantry corps training, then spending some time in a battalion. Him and the other guy, Daryl, that passed selection as TF. And then they would go on to cycle the following year in 2000, where they passed and got badged and served in the unit. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I remember getting back to battalion. I was just really grateful. Like those sergeants that I mentioned again, Sergeant Douglas, Sergeant McIntosh, Sergeant Hutter, probably more so Sergeant Douglas and Sergeant McIntosh. Didn't really have a lot to do with Sergeant Hutzer, although he was a good man, but probably more so those two. Like they pretty much just let me heal up and recover. Let me just rock up to the company lines in the battalion tracksuit, which I wish I still bloody had my battalion tracksuit. I don't have that anymore. I don't know what happened to that. First battalion tracksuit. Anyway, that's a different story. And I just remember reporting to battalion, going to the RAP, which is a regimental aid post, basically the medics, getting my feet looked at. I think maybe I got some Voltaren for the pain and some swelling and whatever, anti-inflammatory type stuff. And then going back to the barracks and then just resting, sleeping, eating, resting. My sergeants and section commanders, it probably helped that it was nearing the end of the year as well, but the guys were still working. Like there was still work and stuff being done, end of year parades to get ready for, and which meant drill, which I just loved not. But they were really good to me. I never really took the time to, and I never thanked them for it in person. I mean, they say never too late, but it seems I'm really grateful to Sergeant Douglas and Sergeant McIntosh that gave me time off to just look after myself for the pretty much the winding down the end of that year. And then I was gone the following year to go start cycle up in Auckland. So yeah, shout out to everybody in Victor Company, 1R and ZIR, at least during my time, like those that were in my platoon or those that weren't in my platoon. Shout out to just one battalion in general, Alpha Company, Whiskey Company, Support Company, people that I was fortunate enough to make some friends with across the board in those areas. I probably didn't have too many, if any, Support Company friends, just because those were the senior soldiers and like I'd only been in battalion for 2 minutes really. Whereas my other mate had only been in battalion for like 10 seconds before he went on selection and passed. So we were same core training. So shout out to him. But yeah, it's just lots of good memories. And I think, what'd you say? And when I finished selection and cycle, that's pretty much my wrap up, man, of what it was like for me in the lead up to selection, what it was like during selection, and what it was like at the end of the NZ selection for me. It was a great feeling. My body was sore. It took me weeks to recover, literally weeks. Like I was so depleted, so weak physically, and still just really sore. Like the feet and the pain in my feet was super sore, which was bloody annoying. But and that stayed for ages. They were swollen up. That's what I forgot to mention. My weight at the end when I weighed myself. Dun, 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 dun. So I was about 78 kgs at the end of selection. So for me, I lost, what's that, roughly 30 kilos, 78, 88, 98, 108 with my track pants and shoes and whatever on. On average, I think people were losing on average anywhere, I'd say realistically, over those 9 to 10 days, I'd say 15 to 20 plus kgs. Like, I think that would have been probably a typical sort of weight range for people to lose. Some people may have lost less. Some people may have lost more. Like me, I was probably on that higher end of just body eating itself to try to survive. So I think I've shared in other videos. It's a good weight loss, fast weight loss plan if people want to go on it. But I don't recommend it. I don't think people would want to do it anyway. I don't think a lot of people want to do it. I think a lot of people might like the aspect of the rapid weight loss in such a short period of time, but probably wouldn't be too keen on the methods and the work conducted in order to get that sort of those gains, if it can be called a gain. I was definitely light. So yeah, and when I saw that number, hopped off the scales, I hopped back on it again, and because I was thinking that can't be right. Hopped on it again. I was like, holy heck! I knew I was skinny. I remember having a shower. Anyway, I'm going to share it. I remember having a shower after selection, and just you shower yourself as per normal. Like, I was like, oh, geez, pretty bony up here, bony around here, bony there. Go down and wash the lower parts, the private parts, your backside. And I remember washing my backside. And when the hand goes in there and then you're like washing soap and that sort of stuff, it felt and seemed like there was just this massive bloody valley between what should have been a couple of arse cheeks squishing together and blinking, somehow squeezing my hand. It just seemed like there was just this big massive gap. And where there should have been meat and fat, there was blinking nothing. It was like, was it Moses parting the bloody Red Sea? So it just, yeah, that's a lasting memory that I have in terms of, I guess, just my body, my feet. Where the fat was in my feet. Bloody hell, my feet look like they're bloody pies. These little fat pastry Danish pies or whatever. The skin was stretched and just really sore. Like the feet were, just like I haven't experienced any pain like that in my feet, at least since I did that selection. Didn't experience it in Australia, but we'll talk about Australia in another video. So, those are probably parts to wrap up on in terms of your email. What selection was like for me leading up to, during, and once I finished selection. So there's a couple of probably not very good memories or visual images for people to try to have in your head. Apologies. But anyway, that's some of, I suppose, that's over a 3-hour download of what my recollection, albeit my potentially inaccurate recollection, because that's nearly 30 years ago, of what the New Zealand SAS selection was like for me back then as a 20-year-old. And then when I come back, I'll speak about, what I recall from what cycle was like for me, the NZ cycle, as a whopping 21-year-old. Or when I turned 21 during the cycle anyway, and a whole bunch of stuff that happened in there. So, yeah, man, if you stuck around this long, appreciate you, eh? Respect to you. Thank you for hanging around and listening to me jabber on about my experience based on this email inquiry and a couple of other similar inquiries that I've received about me doing a video talking about my experience on the NZ selection. There it is. Hopefully there's some stuff in there that makes people smile and laugh. Hopefully there's some insights in there that gives people maybe a better understanding, at least from my perspective, of what it was like back then for me, from my take or my memory. That is maybe helpful in some way, for whether that's people that are just interested, whether that's somebody that's thinking about doing selection, whether that's somebody that has got their application in and is going to do selection, or maybe it's just somebody who has already done a selection, served in a unit similar, and it's just brought back memories. Maybe it's just a Defence Force person who never went to a unit like that, never did selection, but has just brought up different memories for them and faces and images of people that they spent time with, that they built relationships with, who they reflect on from time to time, as it has for me. I am glad once again that I remembered, the very important piece of all of this, which was my now sweetheart, who I was fortunate enough to marry, and the role that she played. She played a massive role for me in terms of, that's probably something I didn't talk about. On selection, let me just get this out there. During selection, during a number of the hard times as well, like particularly I remember open country navigation and close country navigation, I would imagine, and I have shared this with her, but I would imagine that my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, would be at a checkpoint. I would imagine that during the nav phase, that I would be getting to a checkpoint and that I would see her there. Don't ask me why, but it was such a morale boost for me, having a picture of her, bringing her as best I could into the frame of my desire to want to join the unit. That was really the easiest way and the only way that I could think of to bring her in to the struggles that I was going through and have a positive outlet in regards to in regards to where I was at and what I was feeling. Resupply, that's the word. Sorry, bloody hell. I don't have Tourette's, I promise. Resupply is the word that I was thinking of when I was talking about the jerry cans in the Von Tempsky. That's the word that I couldn't bloody think of. Not refurbishment, resupply. Like we were carrying the resupply necessary to help that group. Bloody hell. That's just random, eh? How you can be talking about something and then just boom, the word comes to you. Just when you thought you were getting off this video and had heard the end of me, I come in with more. And then that word pops into my head. Resupply. That's the word. Anyway, back to my darling. Bringing her into that was just a morale boost for me. Some might say, how could that be a morale boost? Because she was never there. Well, I knew that she was never going to be there. But just mentally, visually, understanding and knowing that I thought I would see her at the next checkpoint. When I got there and she wasn't there, I was like, it's okay. I'll see her at the next one. Get to the next one. She's like, it's okay. I'll see her at the next one. And so that was just a great little driver for me. Right or wrong, it was encouraging to me. It added more fuel to the fire, because I needed to get to the checkpoint so that I could at least say, I was here, babe, but you weren't here. But it's all right. I'll see you at the next one. So anyway, just that came to mind then. There's probably a whole bunch of other stuff. I could probably go on for another 3 hours about selection, actually, if I really thought about it. But I think that's enough of a download for here in terms of leading up to, during, and post my time on selection. Post selection is pretty easy. Battalion looked after me. My sergeants looked after me. Company looked after me. Platoon looked after me. Rested up, filled up, and got to go and have some holidays with my then girlfriend prior to then going on cycle the following year. So anyway, I think that's about it. I will leave this here now. Thank you very much for your time and your support once again. And like I said, anybody who stumbles across this, hopefully, if nothing else, hopefully you get a bit of a laugh out of it. So anyway, until the next video, see you next one.